Punching Up, a Nintendo podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Punching Up, your bi-weekly Nintendo podcast on Last Stand Media. I'm your host, Dustin. Here with me, I have most of the crew. Let's start with the people who are here. Mama Micah. I almost wore a flannel today, too, but I wore one on the last show. I was like, do I want to become just always wear flannels in the winter? Because you rock the flannel quite a bit as well. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I have many flannel shirts, and the audience probably hasn't even seen all of them. I have just a section of my closet just for flannel shirts. It's a must-have when you live up north, a crucial layering piece. In like here, though, in Virginia, this is often enough. Like when it's, 45 or something, this is enough to go to the grocery store, flannel shirt over another shirt. But up north, this is like layer number 2 out of like 5. But I do have quite the assortment of them. It's you can't live without these if you're living in a cold climate.
Now, I know weather is the most boring conversation, but I have to ask. I know my parents got snow this past week. Did you guys get snow too?
Yeah, we did get some snow last week, and it was actually enough that it did last like for a day. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but usually when it snows in the morning, it is gone by noon. Like it is usually all melted. There's no trace of snow. If you're like me and sometimes you don't wake up till noon, you didn't even see it. And so this time around, we actually had enough snow that like it iced over the next day. So it was like nice and crunchy on the grass. The dogs were having a good time with it. And it was enough that we did actually keep some of that snow. It lingered in, some areas for a couple days, like in the shade of like under a bush or something where the sun didn't get. Right. So it was nice because I hadn't seen snow like that in quite some time. I even enjoyed crunching around in it myself.
Yeah. I mean, right now we're starting to warm up a bit, so it's about to become disgusting out here with all the mud and gross stuff. So I hate that. But I'm okay with it getting a little warmer because it's been Dagan. Introducing Dagan. Dagan, you are also up north with me, just on the other side of the state.
Yep.
And it's been real cold around here.
Yeah. I was saying on Constellation, it feels like the Philly I grew up with in movies. Like it feels like a Rocky movie. Like this is the way it should be here. Foot of snow on the ground, seeing your breath, gray skies. And yeah, I think I was saying it was like, apparently it was 800 days since we in Philly had like more than 2 inches of snow at a time.
Wow.
So yeah, this is we're having a proper winter so far. And my wife's getting a little cranky. Helene's getting a little cranky about it. Gotta say, that snowbird thing is setting in big time. Like, I don't want to be here in the cold anymore. For me, I'm like, I don't know. I'm okay with it. I don't have to drive anywhere anymore. Not
That's a
commuting,
huge
right?
part of it. I mean, not having to get snow tires and all that. Like, my car is terrible in snow. So I needed like all season tires, like at a minimum when I lived up north. And it just was, though. It's like working at a school, like when I worked IT, awesome. Because I get the snow days just like the children did. But like otherwise, it's a nightmare if you have to actually commute in that type of weather. Like my parents got 10 inches of snow last week.
Whoa,
so it's just, it's bonkers. I can't believe I used to put up with that shit year after year after year.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot. And it makes me sympathize for you in Virginia, too, because I just feel like Virginia is far enough down south where you shouldn't have to deal with that stuff. Right. But it's like you're still dealing with the northeastern conditions down there. I don't know. Dustin and I were also saying like we're sleepy today. And I'll tell you what happened with me, Dust. I'll tell you guys what happened.
Please.
I'm not a snooze guy. If the alarm goes off in the morning, I'm not in the habit of perpetuating my misery. I just get up. I just rip the Band-Aid off. But today, for some reason, hit the snooze like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it gets me, you get those 8-minute intervals of falling asleep and then waking up and then falling asleep again. By the 3rd time, I had the phone and I was trying to hit the stop button because I was like, enough is enough. And I couldn't find it. because I was so out of it that the phone was upside down. And I was just like, what is happening? Where is the stop button? So it's just a lesson for everybody. Snooze is not for me. I'm not going to do that again for a while.
Dude, I wish I could. I am a chronic snoozer, though not to the I've been around people that the extent of pressing the snooze button is absurd. You're getting to it like an hour every 10 minutes. Like, no.
Why?
2 times, fantastic. Maybe 3 if you're feeling extra groggy. But I don't know. And people snooze for now. I'm like, you could have just slept that whole hour.
Right.
Uninterrupted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the interrupted sleep is what's been killing me lately. We got to get to the video game stuff, I know. But real quick, Rush has been waking up every day at 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom. And he doesn't, and the thing is, he doesn't have to go. He's gotten into the habit. He used to do this when he was a puppy. He's like reverting. And I mean, he doesn't have to go. It's not an emergency. Like, oh no, he's having tummy trouble. He just wanted to go pee. He went pee though at like 2 a.m. It's only been 2 hours. He's not a puppy. And it's just one of those, he's in the habit. He likes being out in the morning. He likes looking around the neighborhood because some people leave their houses really early or like they're out jogging. Like, I think he just likes seeing the morning. But so we're trying to retrain him of like, no, don't do that. But yesterday he woke me up at 3:30 and then he woke me up at 6:30. And in between that, Treble woke up at 5 because she's learning this habit. Now she wants to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And it's like, it's the interrupted sleep is what's killing me of like, you guys woke me up 3 times.
That's tough.
It's a nightmare. Tough. And we're working on it because we really do need Rush to stop just wanting to see the morning.
Yeah, dude, the uninterrupted sleep is so vital.
It's key.
The last week my parents' dogs were here, and the one, I guess dog, not dogs anymore. R.I.P.
Oh,
Neko.
Yes.
But the one dog, Elora, she was throwing up, and not badly, not to be too detailed, but it was just like water and. Yeah. I think something spooked her. She was feeling nervous or something. Maybe she had a bellyache, but there wasn't bad. I didn't feel concerned based on what was coming out. And so I was up till 3:30, and that's 3 a.m. plus. That's the danger zone is what I like to call it, because anything up until 2, I can go to bed just fine. Once you get past 3, the adrenaline kicks in and I almost can't fall asleep at that point.
Yeah.
But I took a nap the next day. It was one of those ones where I was maybe out for not too long, like an hour. But I woke up and it was like an entire new day and an entire new reality that I lived in. It's like, where am I? Who am I? Who are you to Holly?
What year is it?
Yeah,
Who's
exactly.
the president?
You jet lag yourself.
Yeah. So
it's almost not worth it.
But anyway, this is a Nintendo podcast. Oh, I should point out real quick. Gene is just fine. He's just traveling. Totally he's out doing important things, so he could not be with us today. Don't worry about it. He's fine. As far as I know, maybe he's not fine. Maybe he needs a friend or something like that. I'm just throwing out the possibility. We don't know.
Man. He's a busy man. Important Gene stuff.
Yeah.
He's like a superhero, I feel like. Like sometimes he just has a calling and he's got to respond. He's in the phone booth. He's taking his shit, putting his superhero costume on.
Yeah.
But what would the Gene signal be? Like, what do we shine in the sky when we need Gene to show up?
It's got to be the Kirby with the Bayonetta hair.
Yes.
That was his profile picture for so long. Like, I feel like that has to be it.
I honestly think about, like, if I think about Gene, that pops up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it is then.
Yeah, that's the iconic Gene symbol. So
yeah, it really is. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, Gene will be back, as far as we know, next episode. But no worries there. I have 2 quick little intro questions here that I didn't really know where else to put these, so I thought, why not right at the beginning? Jace Tamulovich writes in, says, Dustin, I want to start by apologizing. I finally gave Kingdom Hearts a chance, and so far, I'm loving it. I was going to buy 1.5 Final Mix for a friend who only has a Switch, but it's only available via a cloud edition. What gives? How can the Switch not handle a native Kingdom Hearts port? Here's the thing, Jace. It absolutely can handle a native Kingdom Hearts port. This is, okay, I hate people saying like lazy devs, lazy publisher. this is a lazy publisher move. They didn't want to put up the money to get a native port. So this is what you get. Don't support it. Don't do the cloud version. And also, Kingdom Hearts games, why aren't they on Steam? They're only on Epic Game Store. You know, I just got this shiny new Steam Deck OLED. I want to play Kingdom Hearts on it. I don't want to do some weird back-ass bullshit in order to get the Epic Game Store version. Just put it on Steam. Dagan, this one's for you. Okay. Bad Hair Day Caveman says, this one is for Dagan. I have 2 boys, 5 and 7, that lost our copy of Super Mario Odyssey. My wife was raised Catholic, so what did she do? She prayed a prayer to St. Anthony. Lo and behold, our missing cart had been found. Cheers. Now, Dagan, I'm not Catholic. I know a bit about Catholicism. Praying to a saint a little foreign to me, but maybe these saints, fellow Nintendo fans, looking out for a bad hair day caveman. What are your thoughts on this?
Little Catholicism magic. Never heard anybody. You know who taught me about the saints? My mother-in-law, Helene's mom. That wasn't a thing I grew up with, but I remember just when I met Helene, we were living in Philly at the time. So every time her parents would come into town to visit and couldn't find a parking spot, I believe they would pray to St. Anthony for a parking spot. That was the whole thing. And my mother-in-law always swore it worked. So same energy, you know? I mean, the thing is that it can't hurt.
Sure.
Just put it out there. You know what I mean? It can't get any worse. You can't find something you lost. You can't find a parking spot. Put the prayer out there and just, you know, hope the voodoo magic works. But I've seen it work.
Yeah,
I could swear testimony to this. It is effective.
I don't mean to be disrespectful to any Catholics. I'm curious. I mean, in this case, it was a lost Switch game. The prayer goes to St. Anthony. Lost Switch. Are we bumping up a few notches to Mary? You know, and then after
like he has a manager.
Yeah, and then after that, if like maybe it's the Switch in the case with all the games, then you go to the big man.
I always felt like that's too high up. Okay. Like they're not going to handle that kind of stuff. They got bigger fish to fry up there.
God
Jesus,
is not
Mary,
a Nintendo
the
fan.
Apostles.
Yeah,
you know, you go down to the saints, sure. And then I think if it's something really like you don't even care about, you just have to go through the motions to find something for your kid or something like that. Then you just go to your local priest.
Sure, yeah.
Pray to Father Tom. You know what I mean? See if we can get. So there's Jesus and Mary. But you know who would be? You know who would prefer that game stay lost? Our own Colin Moriarty. Not a big fan. Don't pray to him if you want to find that game.
No, absolutely not. He'd prefer it stay lost and that, you know, not only your Switch, but your house burned down, maybe. You know who else hates Nintendo a lot is Locke. There's Summon Sign recorded just with Micah and Lockmort and Brad. And so when I'm editing, I don't get to listen to all of the episode, but I listen to chunks throughout it, kind of spot check things.
Sure.
And one of the parts I got to, and Nintendo, Block was once again calling Nintendo fans pedophiles, I believe. Was I right in hearing that, Micah? Was that a thing that happened?
Oh, I don't remember why. I think
I don't think it matters in his mind.
Because I mentioned that we get called like Nintendorks in the comments, you know.
Right.
But I think we were talking about insults that we get as Nintendo players.
Sure. It definitely happens. So anyway, let's get before we get into it, let's talk about Patreon. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia, where you can get early access to this show along with everything else we do. Of course, I just mentioned Summon Sign. You get early access to that, Sacred Symbols, Defining Duke, Constellation, Knockback. So much value in there for just $5 a month. And there's higher tiers, there's lower tiers, all that kind of stuff. So if you like this show, please check it out. And also, I want to put out a PSA for anyone who maybe doesn't know. Of course, many of you know Sacred Symbols. That's the main show on Last Stand. Maybe not the main show, but the most popular. Is it the main show? I don't know. Yeah,
the eras have changed. It's a different Last Stand now.
I think Summon Sign might be becoming the main show. I mean, who knows at this point?
I think it's this one.
The real ones know. Absolutely. So, Sacred Symbols, we're doing a big event in New York City, Sacred Symbols 300 celebration. And I want to mention on this show because the three of us and Gene are going to be there.
Yes.
So it's March 24th, 7 p.m. at the SVA Theater in New York City. It's still so fucking crazy to me that we are doing a theater show in Manhattan. It just doesn't feel like we deserve that, but it's
That's
happening.
A cool spot too. Very cool spot. Very cool part of town. Easily accessible. I've been in that theater many times. Very, very. It's gonna be an honor. It's like two worlds colliding. It's like my art school days. I didn't go to SVA, but I have a lot of friends and colleagues that went there and still teach there. And then crossing over with LSM, it's like worlds colliding. It's New York.
Yeah.
So exciting. My Long Island peeps will be in the house. Our Long Island peeps will be in the house. And I feel like now what's the pulse right now, Dust? And Micah, you may know this too. Like I see people are coming from overseas already. At least one person's coming from England.
I didn't see that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but supposedly, but what's the consensus of people coming from all over, surrounding states, the entire Northeast? What's it looking like?
Dude, every time we do one of these, I feel like it's kind of all over. You hear people, they're like, oh, I drove in an hour away, right? Or there's people that are coming in from Canada, or they're like, I'm from Kansas or something like that. It's kind of all over, Micah. I mean, when we meet people at these things, people are willing to, it's a huge honor, and almost to a point when people that are really far away, I'm like, thanks. I appreciate it. I know it means so much, but I'm also like, was it worth it? I hope it was worth it, because we're just a bunch of fucking morons. But we appreciate it.
Yeah, I've seen comments from people on the West Coast. I've seen comments from people down, Florida. The funniest thing to me, though, was seeing comments from native New Yorkers, and they're like, Manhattan, I don't want to go into the city. And it's like, you live here. That was the funniest thing to me, of seeing New Yorkers saying, I don't know if I can handle a night in the city, but then seeing someone in Florida be like, hell yeah, man, going to New York. Like,
that's such a thing.
That had me laughing. I know nothing about New York, truly. So in my head, I'm like, I can't fathom if you live like half an hour away, be like, oh, I can't do it. But I know nothing about the city. I haven't been to that part of New York since I was probably 6 or 7. My last trip to New York was to Buffalo, which is basically Canada. So
yeah, seriously.
While we're there, we should figure out if we can get the 4 of us to the Nintendo store.
100%.
Oh,
100%.
Brad has already mentioned to me, he's like, dude, we got to go to the Nintendo store. So I know he's in. I'm sure, a lot of us would be. We got to figure that out. I don't know how the schedules will align, but maybe we can figure something out.
But anyway, between that and Sbarro, I got to get to a Sbarro.
Yeah, I think Dagan would love to go there with you.
Give me a New York slice.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to go to Times Square for that, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know if they exist outside of Times Square. But there's definitely a huge one in Times Square.
I want to get a hot dog from like a guy at a stand. What's the I've been to New York a few times, but I've never just gotten a street dog.
Dirty water dog. You got to do it, dude.
Got to do it.
And the smoky pretzel, Helene's like mortified by the smoky pretzel, but the smoky pretzel is smoky, I contest, because the street vendor is near one of those grates with the smoke blowing up. 100% that's why it tastes like that.
Oh, absolutely.
So bad for you, but so good. Yeah, dirty water dog all the way. Got to get the onions. The onions and the tomato sauce is a New York thing, as far as I know. That's a topping. Don't get the relish. Skip the mustard. Skip the ketchup. But go for the onions and the tomato sauce. I love that. So good.
I know we're deeply off topic, but Dagan, I have to ask: is there? I imagine since it's on the coast, but what's the sushi situation in New York City? I feel like those are
some of the best.
Good.
100%.
I mean, Japan ruined me since I was there, and I was able to eat so much of it, and it was so good.
Yeah, it's not that good.
And now, me being a Western PA boy, I mean, the options, there's maybe a few spots in Pittsburgh that can do a decent job, but
sure.
Some mixed results out here.
Oh, you're telling me that you don't want the Philly cheesesteak sushi that you can get down at the gas station?
Honestly, I would eat that. I would eat a Philly cheesesteak sushi. Not at a gas station, though. I don't know about this gas station sushi business. Is that actually, like, are there places that do that?
Not that I've directly encountered. The thing back home is grocery store sushi, but it's because being in Mass, fresh seafood so easy to get. We're talking, the grocery store has really fresh seafood and they do sushi daily. The problem for me was that but it's been in there all day. If you go in the morning and grab some for your lunch, pop it in the fridge, okay. You're going at the end of the day. You don't know how long that's been sitting in there. I don't know how long it's been sitting in there. That's too far for me.
That is a good point. Plus, those supermarket sushi vendors are like an outside company. They're not even beholden to the supermarket. As far as I understand, they're not even beholden to the supermarket. It's not like the deli section or the frozen food. Like they're an outside corporation.
That probably varies a bit. Like Big Y specifically has their fish department does the sushi, and it's like their label and everything on it, and it's like they make it fresh every day, but to me it's like the ham sandwich in the vending machine of like, I know you replace these every day, but like it's still been 8 hours. I don't know. I want it made fresh if I'm eating raw fish.
I totally understand that. No, Dust, New York's second only to LA, I would say, or maybe all of California in terms of quality sushi, I would say. From my experience.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do that while we're there as well. We'll see. I know we're going to do a company dinner. I don't know where though. But we'll figure that out. But anyway, all of the point of this is if you want to go to this on Patreon, that's how you get first access to the tickets. January 26th. That's later this week. What's that? That's Friday, right? Yeah. That's this Friday at 1 p.m. EST. On Patreon, we'll post the link and along with the code to get your tickets. Everybody else, January 29th at 1 p.m. So if you want to guarantee yourself a ticket, I recommend hopping over on Patreon, and we'll see you in New York City on March 24th. So, guys, let's finally get into the main topic of this episode before we do news and stuff. And I kept this one a little open because there's so many different ways that we can talk about this. But the main news that's been dominating everything on Twitter and on different news sites and stuff like that is, of course, Palworld coming out in early access on PC and also being available on Game Pass. And right now on consoles exclusively on Xbox. But the big thing about this game is that it's not a Pokemon clone per se, right? It is a crafting survival game where you're building your own little bases and going out and getting materials, stuff like that. But the big hook is that there are pals in this world, not Pokemon, they're pals, and you can go out and catch them and put them to work at your facility, your camp, whatever it is. And it definitely has a much more funny and like dark humor edge to it. When I played it, which I've only played for maybe an hour, but I want to put more time into it. When I went out to catch a pal, you need to weaken it like you do in Pokemon. And I was like, well, I got a club. So I found this little sheep guy and just beat him to a pulp. And then he relented and I caught him. I was like, dude, this is awesome. I just punched a Pokemon and now he lives in my town and he helps me collect stuff. So it's definitely a lot more silly and dark, something that Nintendo would never, ever do. But the big conversation around this is that a lot of accusations about, the idea of theft, whether it's just the idea of the Pokemon in general, that broad, or what a lot of people are finding is that there's been comparisons of the actual models of pals lining up very, very close to actual Pokemon models. And it's like, okay, well, if it is changed enough, does it count? Is it too close? But the other thing that I wanted to fold into this conversation is that, which I'm surprised this isn't being tied to it as much, is this game Foam Stars coming from Square Enix, coming exclusively to PlayStation this coming month, I believe. And while this game doesn't share any visual similarities, its gameplay is in a lot of ways Splatoon, where you are covering a map instead of with ink, it's with this foam. I don't know the lore behind the foam, but it's basically like a territory type like versus game where you're trying to get more territory than the other team, and very much a Splatoon clone. Just unlike Palworld, it totally has its own distinct visual style. So I wrote the topic as like, is the industry copying Nintendo's homework? And we have these two different instances, both being treated very differently. And I thought, I was like, okay, well, should the criticism of Palworld copying visuals also be applied to Foam Stars in terms of gameplay? But anyway, I want to hear from you guys, but let's tee you up here with some write-ins, and then we can get into this. Ron Marinez says, I got to get your guys' take on this insane Palworld discourse I'm seeing on Twitter. Certain Pokemon fans seem pretty deranged, saying it's all plagiarized or using AI art. But to my knowledge, the AI art is all speculation. Anyway, the game is so fun, and I'm loving it. Hope you guys have a good one. So, while we're talking about the art, Dagan, I'll throw this to you first. As an artist, we talked about on Just Sacred Symbols Defining Duke about the idea of like great artists steal and all art is derivative, right? But there's also this fine line. So in looking at Palworld and Pokemon, how are you feeling about it?
I mean, I almost don't even know where to start. I mean, first of all, I should say, as a disclaimer, I haven't played the game. I'm not sure I could align myself with spending $30 for this. It would be on Steam because I don't have any Xbox consoles.
Sure.
But until we kind of suss out the AI thing, because I think that's still up for debate. I have to see.
Yeah, that's the one that it's been really developing rapidly, where there was the tweet of the accusation, but then I think that guy rescinded that and said, like, I don't actually know for sure. And this really blew up. So I think it's fair to say right now that's probably no, but the question was out there. So anyway, proceed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, this Pocket Pair company, a Japanese company, as far as I know, they're based in Tokyo. This is not a Taiwanese company. It's not a Chinese company. It's a Japanese company. I found that interesting. Founded about 8 or 9 years ago in 2015. They have a legacy of games, different types of games and everything like that. I think, first of all, it's been interesting to see the reaction and to see how not only people going in for the game and that it's selling record numbers in a record amount of time. So people are genuinely interested. People genuinely think it's fun as well, which is an interesting part of the conversation. I think the Foam Stars thing is interesting, Dust. You turned me on to that. I didn't even know about it. And I think that's a kind of a part B, at least for me, for the conversation.
Yeah.
But for Palworld, the problem is, in looking at it, and again, not having played it, but listening and certainly watching a lot and studying a little bit in the last few days. I think the big problem is that people have to understand is with the art direction of this game, at least in terms of the creatures / monsters. And you have to understand whether you're using AI to steal art direction or whether you're stealing the art direction the old fashioned way. Mm-hmm. You're still stealing the fucking art direction. This game looks like a Pokemon game. That's the problem. It's not the fact that it's a Monster Hunter game. It's not the fact that it takes a page out of Pokemon's book and like catch monsters. And the whole conceit is, I know people are saying it's Breath of the Wild cross Pokemon. I see a lot of Fortnite in it. It's very cleverly combining a lot of huge things in a capitalistic way to cash in on a popular thing. That's fine. It's just that the look of it is the exact art direction, at least in terms of the creatures, again, as Pokemon, the style cues, the whole look and feel. I could, as an artist, as a professional character designer, I could break it down for you. It's hard to put it in layman's terms, but these creatures look like a beta of the next Pokemon game. You know what I mean? It's the art direction. It's the half-lidded eyes. It's those Fu Manchu-like tendrils. It's the spiky manes. It's the proportions. It's the colors. It's all those telltale stylistic details that make this look like Nintendo is developing the next Pokemon game. Like if you showed this to your grandma, she would say to the untrained eye, be like, that's Pokemon. These look like the next wave of Pokemon characters. You need to develop your own look and feel, your own art direction. You need to. That's the thing about Foam Stars, is that that's probably a case of Nintendo looming so large. They're so influential, so innovative and creative, and so sought after that, yes, Foam Stars, in looking at it briefly, it does take a page out of the Splatoon book. It's almost that type of thing. If you're paying attention as a gamer or a developer, it's going to seep into your consciousness just because it's one of the biggest things. It's one of the best ideas, right? But Foam Stars stands on its own. It looks like it's not, from what I understand, it's not a turf war game. So you are covering, instead of ink in Foam Stars, you're using bubbles or suds or foam or whatever to cover the landscape. But as far as my understanding goes, it's not a turf war against the other team. It's so you could move around easier and get from point A to point B to be more effective in combat. And it has its own stylistic landscape with that new age Las Vegas or whatever the hell's going on there. The character designs are really cool. It's not a copy of Splatoon. It's reminiscent of Splatoon. Where Palworld, the problem again is not the gameplay. It's not that you're capturing monsters. It's not everybody saying, well, Game Freak should have delivered. You know what I mean? Game Freak's leaving us high and dry. So this other company came in. It's not, they have a right to do that. And they have a right to sort of emulate respectfully Pokemon and cash in on the, but bring your own look and feel, bring your own art direction, make it look different. I mean, take a game like Cassette Beasts. We talked about that during 2023. That's a monster hunting game technically, or Dragon Quest Builders or something where it's like, make it your own thing, put your own stamp on it. You know, that type of thing. And I think that's really the problem. Is it's not this company, apparently, from what I'm hearing, I think there's just an overall creative lack of integrity. Supposedly one of their previous titles, I don't know if it was Craftopia or something else they did, again, this is pure conjecture, but I heard that they use stock purchasable CG assets, from online instead of creating it themselves. There's just a lack of integrity to something like that, if that's true, that a company like Nintendo would never do. Think about if Pixar did that. You know what I mean? That's the AI thing is unacceptable, but apparently there's a deeper just lack of integrity creatively to the company. And again, that's what I think people have to understand, is that stealing an established look and feel from a thing. When was Pokemon founded? In the mid-90s. Yeah. Something that's established and huge. You can't just go in and take that for yourself. Art direction is stealing, whether you're doing it AI or whether you're doing it the conventional way. It's still stealing. And that's the problem. It just looks too much like Pokemon. These look like Pokemon characters. And I haven't seen that really discussed, which surprises me, because that's really the inherent problem. It's not the fact of they have every right to do a crafting game where you capture monsters, and in this case, you're shooting them like in Fortnite. Pretty clever. And it does look fun. But yeah, you can't just go and steal the look of something. It's just not how it's done.
Right. One comparison that I think of, because I've seen this thrown out there, is that people bring up Digimon as a comparison, which was kind of the original Pokemon clone or whatever. But I always felt that, sure, Digimon, which I'm trying to remember, they may have even been so close in their origin date that I wonder how derivative it actually was. I'm not up to date on my Digimon history, but the thing I will say is that I've always felt that if you show me a Digimon I don't know and a Pokemon I don't know, I will be able to tell the difference simply based on their art direction and style. And I think that's a big key thing. But Micah, let's get you in here. I'll ask this question from Sean Shannerud, who says, "Hey, Punching Up crew, what are your thoughts on the ridiculously massive hit Palworld? Have you tried it yet? And can we expect Nintendo to come at it legally with some of its pals' likeness closely resembling Pokemon?" That is the big question. that a lot of people are wondering right now is Nintendo going to do something, a very litigious company? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's my biggest thing with this is the same as Dagon's of I was honestly startled at how similar some of the creatures looked to established Pokemon. Like, it wasn't so much about the gameplay, because I do feel like they've put their own spin on the Pokemon idea, but there was in the gameplay I watched, because I have not played this either, but I watched like 10 minutes of gameplay from it just to get a feel. And it really was seeing some of these creatures. I'm like, oh, that looks like a Pokemon. There was one in like, it was like a dragonfish looking creature in the water. And I'm like, that looks just like the big blue one from Pokemon. I was like, it looks the same. And the little sheepy guys, I'm like, these are just so similar. You really would, like Dagon said, if you showed this to my grandma, she'd be like, it's that Pokemon. You're like she would 100% be like, I know what that is. And that's the problem I feel, is the ones that are way too similar. There are some that do look pretty unique, but the overall style, like Dagon said, the proportions, how like round everybody is, like everybody's like cuddly and round, and they are just so similar. I do wonder though, Nintendo, obviously, yeah, they're known for their lawsuits. I wonder like what their internal thought process is. I really don't know if they would pursue anything against this, or if they can. I feel like they'd have to have like a very strong case, because this is somewhat subjective to say like whether or not it's a direct copy. Like at what point is something actually, in terms of art, completely stolen versus inspired by? And like legally, we'd need Hogue to tell us. Like, I'm not sure if Nintendo would pursue this or not. There's also, of course, the idea that you bring attention to something and it only makes it, it only brings it more to the public's, the forefront of their mind, only brings more attention to the game. I really am curious to see if they'll do anything. But some of the designs, like maybe some of these specific designs side by side, they are just egregious. But I don't know. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do, if anything.
The big question has been, is Nintendo going to do something? Of course. And just it was either last night or earlier today, I saw someone had made a mod already for Palworld where they put Pokemon in it and they changed the character model to be Ash.
Oh, and well, now you're going to get in trouble.
Well, that's the thing. It's not instantly, but very, very soon Nintendo came in, took that shit down. So it's one of those things where it's clear Nintendo has their eye on this situation, because they saw that very quickly and did something about it when it was actually their assets, even if it is in a non-paid mod capacity. They very quickly came in. So I guess, Dagon, before we talk about another aspect, is I'm curious what you think about the legal ramifications, and whether or not, I don't know, I've seen so many takes about this. I brought up the character model thing where it seems very clear that they started with Pokemon 3D models as a base. And I'm curious for you as an artist too, where maybe a client says like, I want it to look like this, but different. And like, what are the rules in terms of, okay, well, they want this look. I can't copy this look, but in some way I need to emulate it. What do you think the line is there?
Yeah, it's a difficult line to even articulate. And I think that's why, Nintendo, we know, as you said, Dust, they're very litigious. They don't suffer fools. And they don't let people get away with things. They definitely they'll definitely try to make an example out of a company so it doesn't happen twice, that type of thing. And, fiercely, ferociously protective of their IP. And rightly so. They have some of the biggest IP that's ever been created on planet Earth. I think with the art direction, and I am looking at this from the company or the project's creative directors and art directors, you have to set your style and then translate that to your team, at least insofar as your designers and animators, and you have to create something that's wholly, genuinely distinctive. The problem with these characters, even from somebody who hasn't even played yet, just watching clips and watching gameplay footage, is that in Palworld, the quadruped characters look like quadruped characters in Pokemon. You know, down to the proportions, the details, the way the eyes are set into the face. The dragons in Palworld look like the dragon characters in Pokemon. They just have the same exact proportions. They have the same relative scale to the smaller characters. The cute chibi characters in Palworld with their little, you know, snowman coal eyes and stuff like that look like the cute little chibi characters. And it's too close. It literally looks like the next wave of Pokemon cards or something. I mean, what's important for me to say is I don't really have a horse in this race as a Pokemon fan. I've never been a huge fan. You guys have to understand, Pokemon came out when I was like in my first year of college. You know, right. Like this is I'm an old man. Now, I have a little bit of an emotional attachment because my youngest was a huge Pokemon fan, more so of collecting the traditional cards than the video games. But I was always tuned into Pokemon because that was his thing until like last year. You know, he collected them for like 6 or 7 years. So I do have some familiarity. And it's just the art direction is just a blatant copy, not in terms of the environments, as far as I could see in the game, not in terms of the human characters, but just in terms of the monsters, which of course is 80% of the game, at least what we're paying attention to. And I think what's interesting is the argument I'm seeing on social media, especially from diehard Pokemon fans that are angry, is that, well, Game Freak / Nintendo's not giving us what we want when we want it. And I understand that from a fan perspective of other things. But here's the thing. I think Nintendo, seeing that argument, and make no mistake, they're paying attention to this shit, is going to exasperate the situation because that's going to make them even angrier. And I have an analogy for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a sports car like Porsche. Okay. There's a Porsche aficionados, super fans, dating back decades. Cut to 2025, Porsche says, we're not going to make any more Porsches. At least we're not going to make the ones you want, or, you know, you're going to have to wait longer, or there's going to be a limited variety. So somebody goes out and says, well, I'm going to make a sports car like Porsche. I'm just going to jump into that and fill that niche in the market. I'm going to create a beautifully designed roadster that's really quick from 0 to 60 and handles amazing and has that bulldog stance. And that's all great. Everything I just said is great. You have the right to do that, right? But then this guy comes out and makes a car that looks exactly like a Porsche. No, you just made a Porsche and you're calling it Dorsche or something. You know what I mean? Like that telltale thing. You know how a Porsche looks. It's a very unique car. You can't mistake it for anything else. That's exactly what Palworld did. They had that idea. Everything up to that point was amazing. Okay, cool. Like you have every right to do that, and fans are going to clamor for it, and they are. But here's the thing: we're going to make it look exactly like Pokemon 2. You didn't need to do that. It's almost a shame. Now, I don't know if making it look like Pokemon is the reason people are coming to it in droves. I don't know if people are rubbernecking a little bit from the AI angle of like, oh, this is an AI thing. I want to see what AI is capable of. It's almost understandable that whole sentiment might be piquing people's curiosity too. Like, oh, this game is fun. And they made a Pokemon game, essentially, air quotes, with just AI. And people are like, oh, I need to see this. I'll put up my $30 to check this out. I don't know. But it's almost a shame from Palworld's perspective or Pocket Pair's perspective they had a great idea, but making it look like the thing that you're filling in for is where you went wrong. And I honestly, I think it's unforgivable. I mean, that's just kind of that. Nothing kicks up my anger like copying, art. I mean, that's just horrendous. And I'm not even the AI thing. And, we'll talk about this on future episodes as news develops. But the AI thing is an also ran right now. Right now, it doesn't matter how you did it. You copied. And I think it would be understandable for Nintendo to do something. And it would be interesting to talk to Hogue about this to see what the legal landscape looks like when it comes to trying to put a stop to it. The other interesting angle is we talked about recently, at least closing out 2023, Microsoft / Xbox having this available on their consoles and on Steam. Here's a company that's sort of soft courting Nintendo right now. Wouldn't it be interesting for them? I'm not saying this is going to be done, but wouldn't it be interesting for them to step in and say, all right, until we could straighten this out. Now, you're shooting yourself in the foot because everybody's making an enormous amount of money off it right now. But wouldn't that be interesting and trying to side up with Nintendo and just say, I'm not sure you could do that as a third party, but that's another interesting part of the conversation I'm not hearing people talk about is, what is Microsoft and Xbox has a part to play in this too.
Right. The other aspect, and I guess to kind of close out our conversation about this is, and Dagan, you mentioned, it's just the insane amount of success this game. 10 hours ago, the Palworld Twitter account announced that they had sold 6 million copies in 4 days.
Insane.
With an all-time peak player count surpassing 1.7 million. And it's important to note that they said 6 million copies sold, not 6 million players, that's a very Microsoft, or maybe not even just Microsoft, just a Game Pass related thing to say, look at all these players, not necessarily sales because they're playing on a Game Pass, which that's, a different business model, but they're saying 6 million copies sold. So I'd imagine that doesn't include Game Pass as well. So where my mind is in some ways, because it's so complicated in that I think Dagan, you're right about the creative theft going on, right? So I don't like that aspect. There's another side of me that has seen Pokemon games over the last 5-10 years or whatever completely stagnate, and when they do evolve, they are so technically inefficient and come out broken, and they just know that it doesn't matter, and that shit pisses me off too. So to see someone else come in and be like, well, we're going to give you something different and it does really well, good. Push Game Freak to do something. But it's like one of those, I think of that meme from The Matrix where it's like, not like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Micah, 6 million sales. The market is speaking that they want a game like this. Which it's one of those things it's not like, oh, we don't want the Game Freaks games anymore, because those still sell millions of copies as well. But I think that there is some element where this game is making up for an area where Game Freak, Nintendo, the Pokemon company, which it's important to note, it's not only Nintendo that owns Pokemon. Right. I think they own 33% or like a third of it. But this game is speaking to people. So what do you think about that 6 million? And does Game Freak, Pokemon Company, is there some lessons to learn here?
Yeah, seeing comments of people who have played it and saying things like they're comparing it to, it's a mashup of like Ark Survival Evolved mixed up with Pokemon, mixed up a little bit of Fortnite. It is a really unique combination of gameplay mechanics here. And no, I'm not saying that the Pokemon Company should be like, okay, yeah, we'll put guns in the game and we're going to do this. Right. But I think they definitely need to realize that the art direction aside, that someone did come in and make a game that their players, that their core player base said, wow, this is really fun. For anyone who really likes Pokemon, this is something that you could get into. And it's just right there. The proof is there with all those sales. And the response I am seeing on Twitter of some people being soft on it at first and then saying, this actually is really fun once you're into the mix of it. I'm not much of a Pokemon games fan. I haven't played one since 3DS. I really just didn't enjoy it, but I didn't grow up with Pokemon really either. So I think I'm missing the nostalgia portion. But seeing the response from longtime Pokemon fans and saying that it is really fun and it is a clone in some sense with some fresh ideas added. It's just one of those things that I feel like they do need to at least take note of. you're not safe in this space that no one can copy your idea. Like, you're not safe in regards to, oh, well, we're the only ones who can make a game like this. It's like, that's what they need to realize, if they haven't already, is that someone else will come along, take your idea for what you're doing, and they can actually make a decent one. Because we can admit that so many times some of these like games are not good. These games that are a copy of something else, there are so many Harvest Moon clones, for example, that are just bad. Like, it's just a glorified mobile game sometimes. Like, there are so many examples of things like that where, no, the original one was better. But this is a pretty quality, concept here. And the game, I'm not seeing complaints of the game being like terribly broken, things like that. It seems like it's pretty fun. The consensus is that it works well enough. It's at least not what I'm seeing at the forefront. When the latest Pokemon came out, all I saw was that it was broken. That was the leading part of the conversation. And if there are issues with Palworld, I'm not seeing that in the comments. I'm just seeing people talk about how fun it is. So I think they do need to realize that regardless of what maybe the misstep was with the art for this game, the concept was solid. And they certainly aren't the only ones who can make a Pokemon game and be successful with it.
Dig, what do you think about this game maybe putting a little fire under Game Freak? And, well, I don't know. Part of me, it's always tough for me to just blame Game Freak. I want the gut instinct is, but I imagine that they're getting a knock at the door and they're like, hey, when's this year's Pokemon game? No, you don't get any more time. It needs to line up with the anime. It needs to line up with the cards. It needs to line up with all the merchandise. So I think I would hope that this would put a fire on the entire company to say, sorry, I was going to hand it off to you and I thought of it as just another thought that's just like, they may see this at the same time and think, well, everyone still buys our games anyway. So even if this is doing well, who cares? So anyway, Dagan, I'm sorry, I went long there, but
no, not at all, dude. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, and I can see it lighting a fire under the Pokemon company / Nintendo / Game Freak's asses. I don't know. I'm pretty interested in the Pokemon company in that it's the one Nintendo iteration that they have to share billing with. And there's an obvious, share of power. And it's not just with Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures. I understand that 4Kids Entertainment owns a piece too, like 4 or 5% now as well. So it's like a 4-way thing. It's not even a trifecta anymore. So I wonder how.
Everyone loves a good 4-way.
Why just give it to Nintendo? I feel like just give it to Nintendo. I almost feel like maybe Nintendo's being held back because they don't struggle with any IP like they struggle with Pokemon. And it is more complex because there is more than just games, obviously. So it's a multi-tendrilled beast. But again, I think the big tragedy of this from Pocket Pair's perspective is that you did have an amazing idea and you had every right to jump into the marketplace and fill a need. But you cashed it. You didn't need to copy the art direction. It's a shame. That's where you're potentially shooting yourself in the foot. You took something that was really, I mean, in the Pokemon design, it's one of the great known IPs. It's very appealing and it's very familiar. And knew damn well what you were doing and you didn't need to. And I wonder if they didn't even realize they didn't need to do that. That people probably would have came to it just knowing that, it's a crafting Monster Hunter thing like Pokemon. You got the guns in there. You got a little bit of Fortnite. You didn't need to also make it look like exactly like the thing that you were emulating. And I think that's the big shame. And I think it could light a fire under Nintendo's ass, / Pokemon company's ass to do something more. But what I think may happen is that this clamor, this conversation that everybody's having, I think it's gonna really kind of incite Nintendo's ire a little bit. I think it's gonna make them angrier, to be honest. And yeah. I could definitely see them coming down, and I'm sure they handle the litigation end of the Pokemon company, since it's Nintendo. I'm sure that the arm of that company is largely Nintendo's lawyers, stable of lawyers. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. I feel almost bad for Pocket Pair, knowing that, I don't think they needed to make it look exactly like Pokemon. I think it would have been probably big and they would have been in the clear. Now they have something to worry about, and they got to kind of sleep in the bed that they made. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for sure.
Well, we will absolutely be keeping an eye on this. And if there is any big Nintendo updates on this, I don't think it's coming to Switch, by the way. I don't think Palworld will make it over.
Safe to say.
But we shall see. We'll keep everybody updated on that. And with that, guys, let's get into the news, which, being that it is mid-January, mid-January now, there's not a lot of news going on. Hopefully we get a Nintendo Direct or something in the coming weeks, or maybe even a Super Switch announcement, but we'll see. But in the meantime, let's talk about some sales numbers, particularly in the homeland of Nintendo. That is, Japanese gaming publication Famitsu has published a 2023 sales report of all physical game sales, and Nintendo just completely dominated in Japan. And so I wanted to read quickly just this list. I'll start at the bottom, and I'm going to just generalize the numbers, so I'm not reading a million numbers, but you can find these online. So at the top of the list, Super Mario RPG at around 400,000, Splatoon 3 at 500,000, Dragon Quest Monsters 3, The Dark Prince, also at 500, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, 500,000, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 600,000, Momotaro Dendetsu World, which I don't know what that is. I should have looked that up. I just copied and pasted this over. That's at nearly 800,000. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at 900,000. Pikmin 4 crossing the 1 million physical sales at 1.1 million. Super Mario Bros. Wonder at 1.5 million. Then, of course, number one, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at 1.9 million. Of course, these are physical sales, not digital. And the other thing that they published was the hardware sales in Japan. So PS4 is holding on at 73,000. Xbox Series X and S at 141,000. So let's take note here. 73,000 for PS4, 141 for Xbox. The next jump up, PlayStation 5 at 2.5 million. Relatively, well, it's not new, but in compared to the Switch, we'll say it's new.
Sure.
Nintendo Switch, 4 million sold.
Unbelievable.
The last little tidbit about this is, according to NintendoWire.com, they wrote in an article, quote, "The most recent year where non-Nintendo software held the most positions in the top 10 was all the way back in 2004 during the PlayStation 2 era. Every year since has been in Nintendo's favor, meaning if they continue this trend into 2024, it'll be an entire 2 decades of Nintendo supremacy in terms of hardware. Only during 1 year in the last 19 has a non-Nintendo console been the top seller of the year, and that was the PSP in 2010. Every other year, Nintendo consoles topped the charts, namely the DS, 3DS, and Nintendo Switch." And again, that quote is from NintendoWire.com, analyzing the data from Famitsu. So Nintendo, just even in the twilight era of the Switch, just completely dominates Japan in every facet. And I was even surprised too about the hardware sales of Nintendo Switch being over 4 million compared to the PS5. So
incredible.
Micah, what do you make of this? I know it's a lot of data, but I think it's important for us to put into context when we think about consoles and games over here in the US. We see kind of I wouldn't say an even spread, but not this level of complete dominance. So what do you think about Japan and Nintendo?
Yeah, it's certainly, I like seeing these numbers, partly because we do just see the Switch get so much ire for being, oh, they haven't updated in a while. Oh, it's for kids, blah, blah, blah. And then seeing these numbers and seeing the popularity still all these years later. How many people are still picking up a new one? When we joke about, I don't even know why they're still advertising the Switch, not because no one wants it, but because who doesn't have one already? But then seeing like, well, obviously they're still selling so many and still having, I've mentioned in the past, my cousins and like my sister reaching out about, oh, what should I buy the kids? And it's like, oh, they don't have a Switch yet? Well, if they don't have a Switch, you got to get a Switch. And it just is. There's always someone still for them to sell to. I actually, too, I've been getting more Pokemon ads like this past week. And I do wonder, maybe, is it a coincidence or is Nintendo like purposely buying like more Facebook ads? Because that's where I'm seeing them, is all over Facebook. But it is. I love seeing these numbers. And because it's just one of those, for every person who just says like, oh, the Switch is just for kids, it's just for that. And no. This popularity is not dwindling by any means. We have a strong lineup here of great games. I'm thrilled to see these numbers. And I'm someone who is very much, I play all the consoles. I'm certainly not like only playing Nintendo, but I like seeing this continued success on a console that in a lot of ways is lagging behind the others. We do desperately want an updated version, but only because we know what that's going to bring us is even better games, even higher quality experiences, not because we're saying, well, this is a hunk of junk. So I'm thrilled to see just how popular the Switch still is.
Tegan, when I was in Japan, I mentioned that this list is about physical games, and it makes complete sense. Seeing the different stores I would go into, their Switch section versus PlayStation, and I mean a non-existent Xbox section in many areas, that this little console just has completely dominated. And you would think, well, PlayStation is also a Japanese company, where's that aspect of it? And obviously PlayStation does well in Japan, but clearly not like Nintendo. They've got some home field advantage here.
That's absolutely right. I mean, yeah, it's amazing that they're doing it this deep into a console's generation too, like this deep into the console's lifespan. To have this much new life and this much excitement around it still is insane. I'm even sitting here thinking back to 2004, which was the last PlayStation specific dominated year, which was the GameCube era. Right, a couple of years into the GameCube era for Nintendo, and a couple years shy of the Wii. So it's interesting, they're going in on 20 years of dominance. And I'm wondering specifically what happened in 2023. You could think of things like, yes, Tears of the Kingdom, there was a lot of excitement around that. But for console sales, where were the people for Breath of the Wild? It almost defies reason. And the Super Mario movie, or Nintendo crossing over to that proper entertainment entity where it's like, yeah, we're going to drum up excitement on the small screen and the big screen. And you take that and it translates to buying the video games and being excited about the IP. So I'm sure Illumination and Nintendo's Mario movie, which, by the way, I watched again over the Christmas break. They did such an amazing job on that movie.
Oh, yeah.
They couldn't have done any better with it. It just fit. You know what I mean? Like it was exactly what that IP needed to be brought to the big screen the right way. They didn't take too many liberties. It's somewhat conservative in a good way. They didn't cross any lines. I don't know. It really was very, very well done, And I think a lot of that excitement about just being excited about Nintendo, kind of is what we're looking at here. And I think that's the crazy thing that we talked about all of last year, was like, I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. That's the scary part, especially thinking back. We say this all the time, but thinking back to the Wii U era where we, counted Nintendo for all but dead. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is a phoenix really rising from the ashes. It's an amazing story if you look at the full arc. And yeah, man, more power to them. I'm a fan. I'm fascinated. it's kind of like being fascinated with Darth Vader. You know what I mean? It's like, I know they're a little scary. I understand that, but I'm also enamored of them. So yeah, man, and lots to talk about in 2024. It's great for us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I wanted to highlight, I brought up that game that I didn't know what it was. I brought up a quick Nintendo Life article that does a great job explaining it. It's called Momotaro Dendetsu. It says a series was initially created and developed by Hudson Soft and began life on the Famicom back in 1988. And it's been consistently successful in Japan ever since. I've never heard of this game. I'm looking at gameplay now. It almost looks like a board game with trains.
I don't know it.
I've never heard of this game, but I don't know if it's ever been localized. This version surely hasn't been, but apparently this is a big hit to show up in that top list. So pretty interesting. I wonder why they haven't brought that over. I guess that's a Konami thing and not a Nintendo thing, but pretty interesting. Just how there's certain games that are insanely popular on the other side of the world that we have no idea about because it's just never come over here. But yeah, insane success for Nintendo in Japan. Like I said, especially near the end of the life cycle, just goes to show the power of, again, the thing we always have been bringing up on this show is kind of a revelatory. It's not really revelation because it's obvious, but when it's spelled out in the Nintendo financial documents that all of these things around their IP just feed into their core business, the movie, the theme parks, right? All the merchandise, the stores, all this stuff just feeds into that. And they're seeing the results of that pretty immediately, I would say, with stuff like the Mario movie and the theme parks, stuff like that. So good job, Nintendo, and keep it up, hopefully, for Super Switch. So that's the only main news item, but I have quite a few quickies this week. Dagan, I wanted to ask you about this first one. Konami is bringing back Rocket Knight Adventure and Felix the Cat, and this is via limited run games, which I put wrong. I put lazy game reviews, not I put the wrong acronym, but limited run games. Dude, Rocket Knight Adventure on the Genesis. Fucking awesome game. Good. Underappreciated. I don't know anything about Felix the Cat, though, in terms of being, a loved Genesis game. Do you know anything about this?
No, the only Felix the Cat game I know that was, again, another undersung game was the version for the NES, which was a largely overlooked game because Felix the Cat is like an IP that was like then 90 years old or so. Everybody's like, Felix the Cat, what the fuck is that? Like my grandmother watched that. Like in the movie, like before televisions, like that was like the marquee thing, cartoon before the talkie film. But I remember the NES game later.
I think this is the NES game, by the way. I missed.
Oh, it's the NES.
It's the Genesis for Rocket Knight, and then Felix the Cat on NES.
Yeah, that was one of those games where a lot of the retro YouTubers introduced it / reintroduced it to the masses. Like, look at the game we missed out on because we didn't. Felix the Cat was an IP that was so ancient that no one gave a shit. But Rocket Knight, man, that's the story here. Man, that is an amazing game for the Genesis. Again, like largely reintroduced to the gamers via the YouTubers, because I think it was largely overlooked at the time. And then one of those characters, like Little Sparkster, I guess he's supposed to be a possum. He's like an armored possum that flies around with his sword. He's super cute. It's a super well done game, very high quality, very inventive. But that was one of those characters that was like, that could be a brand IP for Konami. It was almost like TurboGrafx NEC's Bonk. It was like, that could be a really popular mascot character. Super cute, super good game, like a Sonic or a Mario.
Right.
So that's exciting. And again, one of those things where being a kid and being in that 16-bit war between Nintendo and Genesis, you would have never seen this coming. Now we're going to be playing Rocket Knight on the Switch. It's incredible.
Micah, I don't know if you have any affinity for Felix the cat. This isn't really gaming related.
I hate it.
You hate it?
Felix the cat. So when I was a kid, I was really afraid of Felix the cat. I don't know why, but it was the same thing with Animaniacs. They also scared me. And I have a real problem with Felix the cat, Animaniacs, those cat-shaped clocks on old ladies' walls.
Oh, yeah.
All those things as a kid terrified me. I love cats, by the way. But something about these specific things terrified me as a child. As soon as I saw Felix the cat in the show notes, I was like, woo, hiss, because I fucking hate it. I'm sure he's a very nice cat. Although if you go on the Felix the cat Wikipedia, there's a really funny picture of these kids in 1926 with a Felix the cat toy. And it's terrifying. And it's just that era where everything was scary. Everything made for children was just terrifying. I'm going to put it in our chat here.
That's awesome.
It's the scariest thing I've seen. Like and the kids look afraid of it. And it's like some homemade Felix the cat stuffed animal. And it's so terrifying. But I never liked it, no.
I'm surprised. He seems prime for a revival because no one's ever really gone, and that includes Felix, and he's kind of been dormant. I remember, Dagan, you might know, was there any kind of newer Felix the cat in the late 80s, early 90s?
They brought him back. I want to say they gave him a series again in the 90s, and it was like an updated conceit, because I think the original Felix the cat, or maybe the reimagined Felix the cat, like the middle version, had like a mad scientist, but Felix had his bag of tricks. So whatever, he was like MacGyver, but he had this little bag, looked like a little Louis Vuitton bag that he carried around, and he could just pull whatever he needed out of it. That was the whole conceit. But I think they would periodically, like every couple of decades, try to reimagine the character. But it just has that whole, like Mike was saying, creepy, early 20th century cartoon vibe, like a Fleischer cartoon, like Popeye or Betty Boop. It's like, and what Animaniacs was, of course, lampooning. I love talking about Animaniacs in this conversation because that's exactly what Animaniacs was making fun of. But that whole thing of like an early cartoon, Steamboat Willie, that type of thing.
I just, you brought up Animaniacs, and I realized I was unfazed by Micah dissing them, and I'm kind of upset by it.
I can't help that they are scary. All right. It's very much the same as I have to Google the name. I was terrified of another cartoon as well when I was a kid. It was a guy, and he's got Freakazoid.
Yeah.
He terrified me as well. I was afraid of a lot of things as a child. I was a frail child. But no, I think Animaniacs, like when I see, like clips from it now, it's a funny show, but as a child it terrified me. Same as like I've never seen all of Jumanji, I've never seen Jurassic Park because those movies traumatized me as a child. But I'm not saying they're bad movies, they're just very scary.
That's interesting, Micah. What do you think about Tiny Toons? That was a similar generation to Animaniacs.
Oh, those are fine. Those are fine. Yeah, I liked those. Yeah, that was all right. I liked that. I liked Muppet Babies. Those were all good.
Yeah,
all those were fine. But these specific ones, there's something about it I found very off-putting.
It's the black and white animals, I think.
You know what? That's not too far off. Yeah.
I always remember from Animaniacs the good idea, bad idea segment. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Thing with like good idea, and then would sell bad idea, and it was always so stupid.
I love the Animaniacs.
Dagan, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with you because there's some like shows from my childhood that I know that you would have to know because you were probably working at that, you were. So like I think about the show that I loved but also scared me was Kablam.
Oh,
yes.
Sure.
I loved Kablam.
Classic show.
Dude, Kablam, which of course Prometheus and Bob, 10 out of 10.
Yes.
Prometheus and Bob, and then there was like the action was it Action League Now?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Hell yeah.
The guy with the melted face was my sister's favorite.
Yeah.
Dude, that was the stop motion or sometimes it was live action footage, but it was of the toys, the action figures and stuff.
Yes.
Right.
And they were like weird. They were such a mixed match because there was like one of them was like a girl doll, but it was like bigger than all the other ones. Like they didn't all fit together. It really did feel like a kid playing with toys, because it's like, well, one of these is like a Barbie and the other one's like He-Man, and it wasn't like that. It added so much to it because they were all just weird.
I love that generation. One of my professors in school was the lead animator for that segment.
Dude, nice.
Yeah. Shout out to David Fain. I think he's still at Nickelodeon, actually. Or maybe he was in and out and then back in or whatever. But yeah, that was and Freakazoid. One of my friends, Diane, was the lead storyboard artist on that. She was a couple of generations above me into the industry, but I think that was one of her first gigs. Freakazoid was a weird one because it didn't last long.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember looking at that. That was like the great white hope for us in college. That all these things were coming out: Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Freakazoid, Nickelodeon with all this Ren and Stimpy and Kablam and all that stuff. It was like when we got out into the industry, it was all over. Like 98, it was all done. It was like, oh shit, we missed it.
To tie this back to Felix, what I remember, Dagan, I finally found it. I have a trailer up, and it's like one of those things when you haven't seen something for, in my case, 26 years, and just totally blew my mind. It's Felix the Cat, the movie from 1988. Was my connection to Felix the Cat.
Is it an animated film?
It is.
I never saw this.
Yeah, I remember watching this. I don't remember very much about it, but with the trailer, I'm like, whoa. I remember this part with Felix in a scuba suit and this bag that he had. You mentioned the bag.
That's his bag of tricks.
The bag of tricks.
His little Louis Vuitton.
So anyway, look forward to Rocket Knight and Felix the Cat coming. Next one.
Good shit.
Little bit of rumor, maybe conspiracy. Not conspiracy. This is fact. In a game developers conference survey, 8% of developers, this is over 3,000 participating in the survey, confirmed they are working on projects for a, quote, Switch successor. So there's really not a lot here other than just the confirmation of it's coming, developers have it. I'm surprised with 8% of 3,000 working on it that we haven't gotten any leaks. I think back to when was maybe it was at Gamescom or something when there was rumors float around and Nintendo was like, no, that's not true. There's we're not showing anybody any kind of Switch successor. And it's like, yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So scared to even weigh in anonymously in that 8%. They're so brave. I'd be horrified to confirm I had a dev. And supposedly a lot of these developers have had dev kits for almost a year now. So, which makes sense, right? They have to get acclimated with everything. But I'd be terrified. I would just claim I would plead ignorance. I do not want Nintendo coming for me. Please, God. I don't even know if I'd work for Nintendo. I'd be horrified all the time. You know, God forbid you slip. Or something.
It's like them and Rockstar, creators of Grand Theft Auto, that it's like, how do you even live your life? You can never talk about what you're doing.
That's a great point.
You know, it's scary.
It's like witness protection status. Like, yeah, makes me nervous just thinking about it.
Yeah. This next one is just cute and fun. I linked a Nintendo Life article just so you guys can get a visual. And that is the new Donkey Kong ride, Nintendo World in Osaka, will appear to go off the track, just like the game. And so you can see in the images, which let me put a note so I can link them in the show, that it basically rides on a hidden track somehow. And it's like a bar that comes out and holds the carriage or whatever, the coaster, and it gives the illusion of it jumping. And I'm really curious how it's going to work out when they actually build the thing and how they're going to hide this arm that holds the vehicle, because I think this is so cool.
So cool.
The image of when you see people at the park and it looks like it's jumping. I don't know, Micah, I don't know where you're at with roller coasters, but is this even the illusion of jumping too much for you?
Oh, no, this is terrifying. I've only been on roller coasters once. I went to Six Flags one time when I was in high school, and I rode it's the Superman coaster, but at that time it was the Bizarro coaster, which at the time they had a record for, it had like one of the fastest like sections on a steel coaster. And that was my first time going on like a big roller coaster. And I was so scared, I didn't even scream. And my sister was very concerned because everybody's like having fun. They have their hands in the air. They're yelling. And I was silent the whole time. And she was like, I knew something was wrong. It's like, you just sat there. And I was like, it was the scariest thing I've ever done. It's not for me. This is really cool concept. But just looking at this, I'm like, I feel, oh no, hate it. My fear of heights is too great to even imagine going on something like that. But it's really cool. I love seeing the new coasters. I like going on YouTube and watching like people who sit in the first seat on a coaster and videotape it. I do like watching those and like living through that. But I can't do these rides, not anymore.
Diggin, what do you think about this the hopping coaster, even if it's an illusion?
Love it.
Love it.
Love it. I love that idea. I mean, that's such a Nintendo idea. That's what I'm thinking. Like before John Lasseter was famously ousted all the way home and Me Too'd all the way home from Pixar, he was like Pixar / Disney's chief creative director, one of the co-founders of Pixar. And eventually when he rose to power, he presided over everything Disney, including the theme parks, and always had like the best ideas. And I wasn't sure, is Miyamoto in that same position? Like, is he creatively in charge? Because this is a very Miyamoto-esque sort of conceit. And also, you know, Disney has their Imagineers, which are the people that are not the animators. They're not in the animation studio. They're the ones in charge of creating things, the engineers and the conceptioneers for the theme parks. Does Nintendo have that for their company, for their respective parks? And does Miyamoto sort of reign over that? That's something I need to look into.
I believe Miyamoto had worked intimately directly on the park itself.
Okay.
And maybe this is my Nintendo fanboyism to some degree showing, but when I was there, I could feel it in some degree. And mainly because here's the thing. When you go to the Wizarding World right next door, this is in Osaka, the one that I was at in Japan, but I'm sure it's the case elsewhere, is that park is designed to be immersive. They make sure they cover up the cash register and they hide everything. There's no branding. You don't see a Coke sign at a stand. They want everything to feel like you're in the park, which is cool. In Nintendo World, everything felt built around experiential stuff. And clearly Nintendo's singular vision of what would be fun to do. So in Nintendo World, there's 2 rides, there's a shop, and there's a restaurant, and everything else in the park is built around these small experiences. And that's where you get the wristband, where you can punch up and hit the block. There's activities where you go into like the caves and you're tapping the different blocks on the walls. There's one where you're trying to hit a Koopa shell into a block at the right time. There's all these different activities that are designed around play specifically that felt totally unique to anything else at Universal that day. So, and I know that Miyamoto did work directly on it. So I would imagine this is kind of the same thing where, I mean, obviously it's just a fun, cool idea that you have a coaster that looks like it's hopping off the track. But I think it's important that they're like, if we're going to do a Donkey Kong minecart ride, we want it to be like the game. And so cool. Even if the thrill level isn't that of actually jumping off, it's about the experience. It's like, dude, I wrote it and it was just like the game. So I love this idea. I feel kind of sad because I'm like, man, I don't know if I'll ever get back. At some point, I'll get back to Nintendo World in Osaka. Hopefully, they also do this ride at the other Nintendo park in the US.
Right. So, sure. Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So it's curated by the creative powers at Nintendo, presided over by Miyamoto. It's so cool, man. It's one of those ideas for a roller coaster that you almost feel like this has to have been done already. And if it hasn't, I mean, I know that's an engineering feat. Mm-hmm. Right. It's going to be at great cost, and they're going to have to work out exactly how to make it safe and also have the illusion of it really jumping the track. But that's just one of those great ideas. It's like, of course. Yeah, brilliant.
RPG classic Golden Sun and Golden Sun: The Lost Age are now available on Nintendo Switch Online via the Game Boy Advance app. We knew these were coming. We just didn't know exactly when, but here they are. People are pumped. I've never played these games before. I've talked about in the past my friend who is no longer with us loved this game. So that's my connection, is I always think of him, and he loved Golden Sun. And so I owe it to him to play these games at some point in his memory. But I'm curious, Micah, I know you love RPGs. Are you intrigued by these two? Do you have any experience? Are you going to hop in?
Yeah, I've never played either of these. And when I searched on how long to beat, because that's my go-to for like, if my order of starting games is always going to be like, well, how long of an experience is it? Am I in the mood for this experience? And these are relatively short for JRPGs. Golden Sun is listed at around 22 hours for the main story. Completionist is 27 hours. So that's not bad at all. And Golden Sun Lost Age is around 31 hours. So these are games that are relatively short in terms of JRPGs that we are accustomed to today that can be 50, 60, 80 hours. So if you're someone who, like me, likes to switch around in terms of the length of the experience, I love to alternate, play a shorter game, play a longer game, and go back and forth so I don't get so burnt out, or also playing a shorter game alongside a longer experience. So while I'm not endorsing these games because I haven't actually played them, but just from the time aspect, that piques my interest even more because I know it's not a game that's going to be 60 hours, or 100 hours.
Digging it. We've talked about your hardcore Game Boy Advance era in your life. Did these games ever come up?
Yeah. I love GBA, and I have to say, it's so cool to see a hidden gem finally get some shine. The Golden Sun is an amazing JRPG, and I think it was largely overlooked just because it came out on a handheld system. I think Camelot was developing it, if I'm not mistaken, for the N64. But Camelot Software is kind of like they're largely seen as like another arm of Nintendo because they develop all the Nintendo sports games. So they're just seen as an extension of Nintendo. I have a couple of friends that still work there actually in Japan, and they do really high quality stuff. They have quite a filmography, a gameography of games. But Golden Sun is really cool because not only did I love the GBA, and I haven't played The Lost Age, so I'm excited. I haven't played the second game, but the first one is so good. Like I haven't played it in a long time. Oh, I brought a prop. I have it right here, actually.
Oh,
because I knew we were going to talk about it.
Nice.
Yeah. So fun, dude. It really kind of feels like some of the great earlier Zelda games mixed with like Chrono Trigger, like the great 16-bit. Has a little Phantasy Star in it. And I've seen it talked about. I don't remember it. I think Mike is right. It's about a 25-hour game. But I've seen it talked about as a great introductory JRPG. So maybe for like the younger player who hasn't gotten their feet wet yet, it's a great one. But yeah, super, super fun. I love seeing it get some shine. I love Camelot getting some shine. And The Lost Age, I think, is deeply connected. Like if I remember correctly, there was a sort of a system where you could take your characters once you beat Golden Sun. You could take some of the characters into the second quest, into Lost Age, which I think only came out like a year later or something. Golden Sun is a heavy game. Like it's really well produced. I think it took them almost 2 years to make, which is unheard of for a GBA title at that time. Really high quality. It's nice that people are going to get the opportunity to play it. I love the GBA on the Switch, and I love it makes sense for Nintendo to recognize these games because of course they're deeply associated with Camelot. But yeah, Micah, you're going to love this game. And I can't speak for the second one. I could only imagine it's at least as good.
So reading on Wikipedia, so you know it's 100% true. But I actually do think this is true. Players can transfer their characters and items from Golden Sun to The Lost Age through a password system or game link cable and are rewarded for fully completing both games.
So cool.
Pretty neat. Was pretty uncommon in that era. Well, I mean, particularly on a handheld game like that, to be able to transfer over through a password system, that's pretty neat. So, and who knows? I wonder. You mentioned Camelot. Now they do. I was looking at their gameography. The new. I think we need to. Do we need to patent that term?
I think
gameography. I don't hear that often, but it should be used. Just recently, of course, Mario Golf Super Rush was their last game. Mario Tennis Aces, Mario Sports Superstars, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, Mario Golf. They've really done a lot of stuff. In 2010, they did Golden Sun Dark Dawn. That's the DS Golden Sun game. I didn't even know that existed.
I didn't know either.
So who knows? Maybe if these do well. I mean, Camelot makes great sports games for Nintendo.
Very good at that, yeah.
But I think a revival of Golden Sun would be super cool for them to be able to do that. So shout out to those games. These last two quickies I will combine, since they were related to, at the same time, announced this morning. Pastel pink Joy-Cons be available on March 22nd if you're looking to make your Switch a little more pink. And with that, we got a new Princess Peach Showtime trailer that came out. I asked you guys to give this a look. So I'm curious, Micah, did this trailer move the needle for you at all on this? And are you interested in pink Joy-Cons?
Oh, yeah. So pink Joy-Cons, I already bought the pastel pink and yellow set. And these do appear to be the same shade of pink. So these I wouldn't buy only because I already have the pink Joy-Con. And I like the pink and yellow because reminds me of like lemonade. These are super pretty though. Definitely. I mean, these would be a great gift for the lady in your life or anyone who loves pink. But the Princess Peach Showtime trailer, it has me more excited because it is just adorable. My favorite still being, I don't know how to say the French word, but pastry chef Peach is my favorite. She's got the whisk and everything, the pastry bag. This is just so cute. She's decorating the cake. I'm so stoked on that. I love cooking and baking in real life. I love my Cooking Mama games. I just adore games that have any sort of like cake decorating type mechanics. So that was the part of the trailer that had me the most excited. And also Detective Peach. So cute. I mean, she's got a little magnifying glass, her little Sherlock Holmes hat. It's just adorable. This is a game that I really just can't wait to actually play because I will say, while they've shown us a good bit of it, I'm still not 100% sure like what the game will actually be like. You know what I mean? Like they've shown us Peach's transformations. They've shown us what looked like some little mini games. I'm like, but what are we doing? And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to find out what the hell we're actually going to be doing like for the main portion of the game.
We talked about Pokemon being modded into Palworld earlier and how Nintendo struck that down. I want to see Cowgirl Peach modded into Red Dead Redemption 2 immediately. Ooh, get that in there. Nintendo, you'll probably strike that down as well, but I don't care. I want to see that happen because that was one of the new transformations debuted in this trailer. Dagan, how do you feel about this new trailer?
This new trailer, they had me at Ninja Peach. I mean, I'm in.
Dude, she's doing the wall jumps like
so good,
like Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, dude. Oh, if you're gonna have a ninja, then please have the wall jumps. I mean, you're doing it right. I mean, it looks so fun. It looks so cute, and I'm in. I love the conceit. Like, I love the idea of justifying the cosplay because it's this whole stage play theater thing. That's adorable. And maybe there's going to be some outfits we don't know. Can you guys picture a world, though? Maybe for Princess Peach 2, we get just a little more irreverent. I know we talked about Zero Suit, Samus Peach, but how fun would it be?
I haven't forgotten that, trust me.
Okay. No, I planted that seed deep, my friend. But how about, wouldn't it be so cool, like have a roller derby Peach? You got the skates, tattooed sleeve arms, a couple of piercings. It's a little irreverent, but it could be cute, right? Mexican wrestler Peach. I know I talked about that before. Maybe you have a Jason Voorhees Peach, hockey mask, chainsaw. Doesn't have to be blood. Just something cute. Like just do some, just skew it up, make it a little more adult.
No, if you're going to do costumes. That's what we'll get when Peach enters public domain, that's when we'll get all those variations. That'll be when we get the Mario Sports Edition, and they're playing hockey, and yes, she's got the hockey mask and everything on, got a machete perhaps. That's when we'll get all those things. Yeah, Mario Sports Roller Derby Edition.
Sorry,
I'm here for it.
I was a little distracted. Someone rang my doorbell. I looked through the camera. I'm 90% sure it's one of those energy guys. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, they still
sell you solar panels?
They're trying to sell you like an alternate energy. I don't know how it works. They come and they're like, we're from the power company. Lie.
Yeah.
And we'd like to see your bill. And they're like, oh, well, if you switch to this thing, we'll save you money. But then ultimately it's like a scam. And then eventually it becomes more money. And yeah, he showed up. I told Holly, ignore. I texted, ignore the door. Because I ain't got time for these energy schmucks.
No, Dust, it might be a Pennsylvania thing. I think they broke up. Same thing in Philly. Like they broke up the monopoly or the trust for power companies. So now it's 2 or 3 or 4 competing power companies for an area. So you could, I guess you could choose. My father-in-law says it's all plugged into the main power company anyway. So it's kind of a placebo effect. I don't know if that's true. But yeah, they come door to door still. It's like, is this 1960? I don't understand. Like,
well, Ben gave me a little tip when he was mayor that it's kind of unfortunate he rang the door during the show because I'm not going to go answer it. But apparently a lot of these guys don't have a solicitor license in the city. So you just got to ask to see it. And if they don't present it, say, well, okay, well, let's I'm going to call the police then.
It's a great tip.
Yeah. But unfortunately, he will live another day to knock another door because I'm not going to answer. And no, I mean, this guy's trying to make his living. I don't blame him. But I do blame trying to sucker people out of money by pretending you're the power company. You're not the power company.
You got to can you imagine the amount of abuse this guy gets, though, going door to door in 2024? Like, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is not good for this man.
No, absolutely not. As far as Princess Peach Showtime, here's my thing. When I see this game, I think that it looks like a kid's game to the point that I don't know if it's going to be fun for me. But I said the same thing. I had the same kind of concerns about Kirby, the Kirby in the Forgotten Land, where I was like, how in depth is this? Not that I need it to be a 80-hour deep RPG mechanic Peach game, but I'm just not sure. Like you said, Micah, like what is the game other than just switching around to these different modes of Peach? So I'm curious about this one. We'll see. But again, I believe that is March 22nd, the same day as those Joy-Cons when that comes out. And that's it for news and quickies. I did have a question that I wrote in here. It was about Golden Sun. Harrison, I'm sorry. I should have read that when we talked about Golden Sun. I forgot because I'm a bad host. But note that I did write your name in, Harrison. Let's get into what we've been playing. Dagan, let's start with you.
Yeah,
with some Link's Awakening.
Oh, yes. I'm still on my 2019 reimagining of Link's Awakening. Super fun. I'm just kind of taking it slow. I'm a Zelda purist. I love old school non-open world Zelda, shall we call it. I love traditional dungeons. I like this game really strikes a balance between just being appealing and fun and being a little challenging without being frustratingly difficult. Like it's still, obviously it's a remake of the Game Boy game, the third Zelda we ever got, but it's an adorable reimagining. I love the style. Everything just looks like candy. But it's also just really it strikes that balance of being a fun game, cerebral, you could get invested, but it's not frustrating. I recommend it to everybody. So I'm just taking that slow. And then along with Link's Awakening, I'm still playing Metroid Dread. Just having a good time with a game I didn't spend enough time with initially. I love 2D Metroid. And I think this game, I have to be in the right mindset for Metroid Dread because there is a lot of tension there for me. It's those chases, right? That type of thing. I have to be in the right. It's not a relaxing game, but it's fun. You know, kind of. It's a caffeinated experience. It keeps you on edge. But so those two games for sure. But I could not ignore the Prince of Persia hype anymore, and I said, you know what, I'm going to play it on Switch. Colin again pushed me over the edge. When he says something's good, I usually take that at face value, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, I got to give this a shot. Now the trailers looked good when we were talking about it last year. I needed a little bit more 2.5D in my life, and it's beautiful, dude. It's super. I need that fun and fluid platformer, but it's also gorgeous. Really nice hybrid of 2D and 3D. Some beautifully animated effects in the game. Even the opening cinematics and stuff, beautiful. Super fun to play. I like the way, you know, it kind of steeps you in how to play it with sort of the built-in tutorials as you get ahead of steam and get going in the game. Super, super fun. I'm going to take my time with it. Once I beat it, I'd like to try it on the hardest difficulty level, that sort of thing. Shout out to Ubisoft. I think it's really, really well done. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to Contra, Operation Galuga. That should be coming imminently. They say early 2024. I'm waiting for it. So there'll be a little bit more of that 2.5D sort of resurrecting an old franchise, a little platforming action. So Prince of Persia will hold me over. But yeah, man, The Lost Crown, it's so good. I'm just getting going. I think I'm not very far yet. So I'll talk about it more in the next one, because I'll definitely be playing it in a couple of weeks. But that's it. I'm strictly on Switch right now. I'm not playing anything else outside of Switch. I'm not on the PS5 currently. My son usually has that tied up with Fortnite anyway, so it's a good thing. So yeah, those are my big three at the moment.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard. I know that Prince of Persia game runs really well on Switch. It's clear that was kind of the base. They wanted to run in 60 FPS on Switch, which is good to hear. But let's, as a little transition from Dagan to Micah, I wanted to read this question from Michael Limaru, who says, "Hey, Nintendo Punchers, I finished Zelda: A Link to the Past for the first time this month and just listened to Dagan and Colin's knockback episode on it from 2018. I love the game and can see why it is regarded as one of the GOATs. Do Gene and Dustin," well, we're going to say Dagan and Dustin since Gene's not here, and since you talked about Zelda, do Dagan and Dustin hold the game in the same regard? Is there ever a Zelda game that Micah should try? Should it be this one? Thanks, everybody. So Link to the Past, I know that you mentioned Link's Awakening, but you know, he's wondering, are you into it? Is this the Zelda game that Micah should play? I don't think so, but I'm curious what you think.
Really?
Not as the first one.
I gotta get your take on this, dude. Yeah. Still my favorite of the Zelda, the first 16-bit Zelda, the third, I guess it's technically the fourth Zelda game we ever got. Still a masterclass for me. You know what? It's such a good game. Like, I know Micah likes a JRPG. I know she likes a cozy gaming experience. There's nothing more cozy than this game. It's like a masterclass in immersing you in an atmosphere. The music, the weather, light world, dark world. It's long, it's involved. The dungeons are challenging but fun. There's a lot. Like, this game really was, at the time, it put Zelda on steroids. Like, you could do so much. The weapons, the items. It's just so, the boss fights. Like, it's very, very, it's probably one of the great games in terms of development, where it's just chef's kiss. Like, it's just that good. I speak, a lot of old men and women gamers will tell you that, but for me, like, it's still one of the greatest games of all time.
My take on what Micah's first Zelda should be, because I think Link to the Past is great.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about Micah's sensibilities with puzzles and the other side of the aspect with Tears of the Kingdom being super open. I always say Ocarina of Time is that blend of it's not fully linear, but it's very clear about what the path is. And it's just unfortunate. It's like, hey, you want to play that? You either play the Nintendo 64 version or there's the 3DS version, which is awesome. But currently, there's not a lot of... I mean, I think that one's on. Ocarina of Time is on Nintendo Switch Online. Yeah, it definitely is.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike,
that's hard to argue with. That's hard to argue with.
I'd consider it. I don't know. It really is. There's obviously so many. I don't know where I would start if I really wanted to try one Zelda game again. Because it's not that I've never tried one, right?
Sure.
Like I tried to get into Twilight Princess and I got about an hour into that game before I was sick of it. You know, I just haven't had great luck with getting into Zelda games. But no, it's not to say I would never try one again. Maybe we'll poll the audience and get their opinions on what should be baby's first Zelda game.
That's a great idea,
and go from there. Leave me your comments and tell me which one you would start with if you were a 30-year-old who hates puzzles and doesn't like to feel stupid. And then I'll see how I feel about it.
Micah, you're much more into, none of this baby shit with Zelda. You want to play a game where people are pointing guns at their heads in order to summon their Persona 3 Portable on the Switch. Tell me about it.
Oh, I am loving it. I will note I'm still playing Dave the Diver and Yakuza 7 on the side, but I mentioned those on the last episode. And so they're kind of on the back burner right now. Dave's in timeout because I got angry. I had a whole bunch of resources, got eaten by a shark, lost my whole day's worth of diving stuff, right? Put Dave in timeout. That's literally when I immediately started Persona because I got my physical copy a few days ago and just had to start it. It is so good. The story had me really invested right from the get-go. The overall premise is that there is this apathy syndrome that is affecting the city, and you're just seeing these people. They're so creepy. Partly because these graphics are like very reminiscent of like the PSP era. They're very polygonal still. And so the creepy people who have this apathy syndrome, like their eyes are very dark and they don't speak to you. Like you walk up to them and they just kind of like make like zombie groans, and it's very off-putting. So I'm loving that aspect of it. You're trying to figure out why this is happening. Like in other Persona games, you're defeating shadows in order to try and figure out, who is behind this apathy syndrome. And you're going into this, very lengthy dungeon called Tartarus and working your way through that on a little bit of a time limit, essentially. The big thing in this game is that the moon cycles affect the dungeon. So you'll be able to progress to a certain point within each moon cycle. That's kind of your time limit so that you know how to budget your activities between managing your social links, spending time in the dungeon. I love the social aspect, of course, deciding what you're going to do after school. Do I hang out with a friend? Do I go to swim practice? Do I go to the bookstore and work part-time? I really love all those choices. And it's still, though, a pretty streamlined experience. Time just keeps progressing. You just make your picks as to what you want to do each day. Some people find that stressful. I just love the endless possibilities of everything that you can do. I do feel like this game has really great replayability. I don't typically replay super long games like this. This isn't the longest game in like the Persona series. I think like How Long to Beat had it listed around 50 to 60 hours, more if you want like the completionist, but I think Persona 5 is like 100 hours easy. So it's one of those games that I don't know if I'd replay it, but this edition does give you the choice of a male or female protagonist. The male protagonist was recommended for first-time players, so that's what I went with. But if you play as the female, it gives you different social link options and really changes things up. So I could totally see myself replaying this in the future, but I'm not someone who likes to replay games right away. Like I just experienced it, so I don't want to dive back in too soon. But it is a game that has completely got its hooks in me, and I'm maybe thinking of getting the remake still. I got this one because I really wanted the handheld aspect, of course, and the remake looks awesome. I mean, taking this game and putting it into, the Persona 5 style, in terms of the graphics quality and everything. But I do love the sort of click around adventure game style of this because it's got like the visual novel aspects to it. And in a way it makes it feel a bit more manageable because instead of having to walk around everywhere, you're using these quick menus to navigate the city. And I know. I like the presentation of this quite a bit. So at first, I wasn't sure which edition of the game I wanted, if I wanted to get the remake or get this one. And I'm very happy with my choice so far. And being able to play it on Switch is huge.
Yeah, I'm getting so excited for the remake. It's not too far off. I did see a report. I almost thought about writing into the show that Atlas is looking into options on potentially bringing it to Switch at some point. But yeah, cool to see you diving in to Persona 3. So,
oh yeah, and I want to give a shout out too. I did see on Twitter that Persona 5 Tactica was half price at Best Buy. So it's $30 with free shipping. So I haven't received my copy yet, but I did go ahead and pick that up. It was still full price everywhere else. So if that's a game that people are interested in, see if it's still on sale at Best Buy, or other retailers may also be discounting it at some point. But that's one that I was really interested in. But I do like to support developers, but I wasn't sure how much I'd like the gameplay. So that wasn't a full price purchase for me. But getting it for $30, I felt comfortable saying, if I'm not crazy about it, I'll probably still play through the whole game, but I didn't spend the full amount because I've watched a good amount of gameplay for it. I think I'll enjoy it, but I'm just not 100% sure. I love the Persona 5 characters, though, in that cast. So I just had to give it a try.
Yeah, check it out. Why not? My games here, not too different. Still playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm in close to the final act of that. And so I'm happy I'll be done with that. I'm going to play the Yuffie DLC, and then I'll be going right into Persona 3 Remake or Persona 3 Reload and Grand Blue Fantasy. So finishing that up. On the side, though, in the evenings, late at night, I've been playing Elden Ring with the Seamless Co-op mod with Brad. So we've just been going through, and it's been fun just because it's a time just to hang out, chat, hang out with the boys, or I guess in this case, just Brad, but just going through this game again and getting ready for that DLC. I wanted to read you guys this question because it's about, this is the What We've Been Playing segment. And this is a question about how we play from Dakota Brown, who says, "Hey, Brick Fisters. Ooh, I have a question regarding balancing playtime across gaming consoles. I usually played retro style / indie games on my Switch until recently. I got the awesome Analog Pocket 2 months ago and haven't touched my Switch since then. For example, I was going to buy Mario RPG Remake for the Switch, but now plan to play the ROM of the original on my Analog Pocket. I find it easier to play AAA console games on my Xbox, PS5, alongside a retro-style portable game, rather than playing 2 AAA games at once. So my Switch seems to have fallen to the wayside until the next big Nintendo game or Switch 2 comes out. Do any of you have this problem as well? Thanks for the great show, and I want Micah to know she is appreciated by many LSM members."
Woo!
So all three of us, multi-console gamers, kind of jumping around all over the place. So, Dig, I'm curious. You were saying your PS5 is gone by the wayside for now. You're all Nintendo. Do you feel a need to balance things out? Are you feeling like you're leaving one out? How do you manage this?
I feel bad because I spent so much time with the PS4, but just because of the nature of my household and my son just occupying the PS5 all the time. Plus, I've admitted this on the show before, I like to hide, and I could do that with the Switch. Can't be in the middle of the living room playing PS5 and then everybody's going to need something. So a lot of this is just ducking and dodging the family. But yeah, it kind of makes me sad in a way because I used to play a lot of everything on the PS4, whether it was a AAA game. I played a lot of Mega Man Legacy Collection on the PS4. Like, it didn't matter to me. It has become largely Switch, which is okay with me. But also, it's not a problem because there's no way I could play 2 AAA games at the same time. But I'm just not built for that. I just need to concentrate on the one game. I guess, in fairness, usually it's because I have to talk about it for a show, whether it's Knockback or whether it's Punching Up now. But I would still prefer to play whatever AAA game, new or old, on the PS5. And I think that's just because I'm set in my ways with thinking AAA game, Sony, a certain controller, that type of thing, you know, whereas anything Nintendo, you know, it's a cinch, you know, with, especially with doing punching up and with the Switch. And then, of course, like I still sit down with my retro consoles, especially the Super Nintendo lately, like, which was my childhood Super Nintendo from the early 90s. And just pop in a game that's easy to play, you know, easy breezy, whether it's Link to the Past or Mega Man X, you know, that type of thing. Just to get, I don't know, there's just something familiar about sitting with a game that you spent decades with. Sometimes it's just fun to just go back. It's nostalgic, but it's also just a way to pass a half hour because you know what to expect. You know, I think that's part of the thing with retro gaming with me. So yeah, the retro consoles too, the Sega Jenny, NES, and the Famicom to some degree, and the SNES are still really in the mix for me.
There is nothing more comforting for me in life. Nothing. Okay. Not the embrace of my wife, being at home, nothing more comforting than hearing the PlayStation 1 boot up sound on a CRT. So I totally understand that feeling.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Just keeping that around when you need it. Now, Micah, my impression when I was thinking about this question, I was like, well, Micah, I mean, you've already played it out. Portable is the choice. So, but do you feel a need that's like, oh, you got to balance things out?
So I have just so many games in the backlog that on Xbox and PlayStation, and for a very big reason I haven't gotten to them is that, yeah, I do spend most of my time playing things that I can play handheld so that I can spend more time with Colin, essentially. But we had a funny moment on the show yesterday with Brad because he had mentioned like, well, why aren't you getting the remake? And I said, well, you know, it's easier for me to be able to play things on Switch. And he's like, don't you guys have a Portal? Mm-hmm. And I completely forgot that we had a PlayStation Portal because it's Colin's in my head. Of course, he will let me use it. But in my head, I'm like, well, that's Colin's, you know, thing. And then I said, yeah, we do have one. But that only makes me say, oh, well, I have a stack of, you know, physical PS5 games, you know, PS4 games, too, that I was like, yeah, I can play these. So I do want to get into trying that out because I have several games that I could run on PS5 that, yeah, I'd love to try those out. And I am trying to get back into Xbox more. Playing Yakuza 7 on my Xbox has been fun. It's my favorite controller. A big reason why I haven't been playing Xbox so much is I haven't been into multiplayer games as often. I used to be huge into Call of Duty, and I didn't pick it up the last couple of years. So that's a big Xbox series for me because my favorite place to play online games is always Xbox. But I haven't really been in that zone lately. So I do want to get back into some of these things, but Switch with the handheld is still king. But if I get super into using the Portal, maybe we're going to need to get another one.
I think that you could easily, you know, if you show some mild interest in the Portal, I think Colin will just buy you one. You know, you could just kind of like, you know, Inception that, you know, maybe you whisper it in his ear while he's sleeping, like, well, Micah needs a Portal. And then he'll like go right on PlayStation Direct. So I'm just saying it's a possibility. For me, so as long as I've been an adult, whether I've been, I've never been poor, like I've never been worried about groceries, but I have had a lot of time in my life early on where I had to be really considerate about spending, right? Even at that point in my life, something that was a very high priority at the sake of other things like a decent car or, you know, newer clothes or something like that, or new shoes. I've always made it a priority that I want the option to play a game no matter what, which doesn't mean I'm going out and buying every game. I just want to make sure it's like, okay, it's a game on Xbox. I want to have an Xbox. I don't want to feel left out. If there's a game, PlayStation, Nintendo, whatever. And so I've continued to operate that way in that, for example, I haven't played my Switch. Probably I played a little bit maybe recently, but it was mainly when Mario RPG came out that I was into it, and it's just kind of been sitting. And I'm okay with that because I like to have that freedom of whatever's calling me in the moment. I mentioned my new Steam Deck, so I've been playing that a lot recently. And eventually, it's going to probably go down for a bit and not be used as much. Just like my Analog Pocket, I haven't used as much in the last few months, but eventually it will call out to me once again, and I'll have that option. So I know it's a luxury. It's kind of a luxury thing. It's just kind of like your priorities to some degree. I mean, I know not everyone can afford every console. You want to get your uses out. But I would just say, as far as your Analog Pocket versus your Switch versus whatever, it's okay to let something sit for a bit. You can come back to it later. Play the point of playing games is to have fun, not any kind of obligation to, oh, I haven't played this in a while. Just let whatever pleases you lead the way.
I like it.
That's my take on it.
It's a cycle. You know what? Really, more so than the hardware is the backlog. Like juggling the backlog against something new that I really want to try out. It's like, how can you jump into this when you still haven't done this, this, and this? That's more of a conflict for me. But the hardware thing, yeah, you got to cycle it. And that's the other thing too. I started Steam. I'm like a year or so into playing games on Steam, but you know what happened? When I went to go play Alan Wake 2, my laptop was like, nope. I was like, yeah. Oh, fuck you. So now I can't even play. I have to figure that out. I know Alan Wake 2 is a little on the heavier side, but I got to figure that out too. But I never thought I would I never thought I would be a PC gamer, but I'm enjoying that as well. Like, this old dog's discovering some new tricks. So that's another part of the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So playing games, it's about fun, not an obligation to a console or a game or whatever. So take that as you will. And with that, Dagan, give us some of that special Dagan segment.
The Dagan segment.
The Dagan. I just have it in the document. It says Dagan segment because I like it. I usually don't know what it is, but I do this time. But I'd love for you to debut it.
Yeah, it's not always a game, but today we're going to do a little game, a little twist on a game. Now, I should say, too, there's going to be another form of this game, a little different, but when Gene gets back, and that'll complete. This will be like a Golden Sun 2 thing. Like, we're going to have to do both games to make it complete, but this is going to be the first half because we're missing one of our own here today. Now, I told you guys, you already knew from the Discord, I'm going to ask you for your top 5 games on the Switch. So again, like we said, doesn't have to be a Switch exclusive. It doesn't even have to be what you consider the best games on the console over the past 7 years or so. But it should just be the games you enjoyed the most. Maybe part of that is the games you spent the most time with. So if you have to narrow it down to 5 games, which games did you enjoy most on the Switch dating back to 2017? And I'm going to ask you guys each your top 5, but don't tell me yet because here's the game. I'm going to pit you guys against each other today. It's going to be a little bit Dustin versus Micah. All right. And for the next game, I should say, you guys will be free and I will pit myself against Gene. So the next one is going to be Dagan versus Gene. Okay. So before you tell me your top 5s, I want you to guess each other's top 5s.
Oh,
whoever has the most guesses, whoever gets the most wins today. Okay. Now I'll set it off because I'm absolved from playing the game myself today. So I'm going to tell you my top 5. And again, this is an acknowledgement that I realize Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Super Mario Odyssey are all great games. However, I wouldn't consider them my favorite on the console because I didn't spend an enormous amount of time with any of them. Okay. So my top 5, I'm going to give you guys real quick. Super Mario Brothers Wonder, loved it. Such an amazing mix of traditional Mario mixed with novel Mario for me. Loved it. Link's Awakening 2019. Loves finally spending time with this game. It's adorable. It's perfect Zelda for me. Vampire Survivors gave me carpal tunnel syndrome in my left hand. I know. It's an iPhone game. I understand it's a mobile game. It's just so fun and addictive. If you guys haven't played it yet, don't disparage me. Just go try it out. Now, I played a Metroid Dread, of course. Love it. I talk about this. I've been gushing about this one for a couple months now. The other one that might surprise you is I played this game on the Switch, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. 2019 for this console. Cuphead. Studio MDHR. Shout out to the Moldenhauer brothers. I don't know how I waited 2 years to play Cuphead. Didn't play on Steam. I wasn't a Steam gamer at that point. No Xbox console. Had to wait. Don't forget, it was a Microsoft exclusive the first couple of years before it came to Switch and then eventually PS4. But so Cuphead rounds out my top 5. All right, so Micah, I don't want your top 5 yet. I just want you to guess Dustin's top 5. Okay, and we'll see how many you have in common at the end of this.
How well do I know my stepson?
How well do you know your co-host?
Gosh, okay. First one I'm going to say Tears of the Kingdom. And then I'm going to go... I'm torn between Mario Odyssey or Mario Wonder. Which one Dustin might have liked more. I'm going to go Mario Odyssey. I'm going to think maybe that was on his list.
Okay. Got it.
I'm going to throw in... what was that game with the fruits? Was it Suika game that Dustin was telling us about?
That is the name of it. I'm not confirming or denying if it's on the list. I'm just saying that it is Suika game.
I'm putting that on the list.
Okay.
I'm gonna put WarioWare Get It Together on the list. Is that 4? Am I at 4 games?
Okay.
I wasn't counting.
That was 4.
I think that's 4, yeah.
One more to go. You're doing good, I think.
If I'm gonna one more game for Dustin, for my boy over here, and I probably got none of them right. You know what? Give me Mario Golf. I feel like that might be a hidden one on Dustin's list.
All right. Did talk a little bit about Camelot today. All right, so you got your 5 guesses. Now, Dust, I want you to do the same. You guess for Micah, and then you guys will do your big reveals.
Okay. The first one I'm going to say is... I'm trying to remember conversations we had, whether you were liking games, not liking games, haven't played them, but were interested. Kirby in the Forgotten Land, I'll say. The next one, I'm between the 2 Fire Emblem games. I just don't know which one to select. Let's say... tough one. Let's go with Fire Emblem Engage. I might bite me later, but...
All right, you're rolling along.
I'm rolling along here. I'm also trying to remember if you liked Animal Crossing.
This really is the thing of like, man, I know you pretty well, Dustin, but as soon as you ask me a question like this, my mind goes vacant. I'm like, I don't know what Dustin likes. I've never met this man in my life.
Okay, let's lock in... See, this is tough because you played all 3 of these games about the same time. That's Xenoblade Chronicles. I don't know which one makes the list. I don't know if we're doing half points. I'm going to say 3 since that's the newest one, but
no, I actually only have played the first one so far. I'm going to give you that I have not played all the Xenoblade Chronicles games yet.
Okay. We'll do Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition.
Okay.
Wow.
2 more to go. You're getting there.
I need to think of one of these weird ass visual novel games that Mike is into, but I don't know the names of any of them.
Yeah, Micah likes some more obscure games, so it's tougher.
Let's put in, I think you played this on Switch, Dragon Quest 11S.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you played that.
All he got is one more.
Just one more. I think I'm going to be strategic in this because I know that they're not both on there, but I want to put on Fire Emblem 3 Houses because I know it's got to be one of those 2.
Yeah, that's the one I want to play. Okay. Fire Emblem 3 Houses for your 5th one. Okay. That's very cool.
Maybe they're both on there. I mean, that would be amazing. But
as I was playing this game out, I was like, wow, you know what's really cool about Punching Up and the 4 teammates is that we have such an eclectic taste from person to person that we kind of cover the spectrum altogether, which is really neat. so everything kind of gets a voice. Micah has exotic tastes in certain things, and I turned to be a pretty beige mainline guy, and everybody's got a Dustin and
I just thought of something. That's okay. They're locked in.
All right.
I thought of something I should have put, but that's okay.
Okay, that's all right. And to add to make you guys feel better, I think the twist on the one I'm going to do with the four of us, with Gene and I pitted against each other, is going to be tough too. Maybe even tougher than this one, I think. All right, so now, Micah, we'll go back to you for your actual games, and then we'll compare side by side.
Yes. All right. Okay. And I got my little stack of games here because that was the easiest way for me to go through my collection, was to just look through all my games. No. So, Dustin, you were very close. I almost put Xenoblade Chronicles in the list, but I instead went with Shining Resonance Refrain.
I could see the image of that cover in my head, but I couldn't remember what it was called.
That's a great
Yeah, it's a weird game. And this literally was the tiebreaker. It was the last game I put on the stack. And I said, is it going to be Xenoblade Chronicles or this one? I went with Shining Resonance Refrain. Next would be Octopath Traveler, the first one. That was just an absolute. That's one of the games that made me cry, so I had to put it on the list. Pikmin 3 Deluxe was next on the list. I mean, this was a complete surprise to me, but I loved it so much.
I should have thought of it.
And it beat out Pikmin 4 for me. I said, I really like this one. Triangle Strategy, which was my game of the year when it came out. That's my number 4 on the list. And the last one is Yoshi's Crafted World.
No, yes. Kirby?
No, here's the thing. As much as I love Kirby, I feel like Yoshi's Crafted World is the better game over Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I like them both a lot, but the Yoshi's Crafted World, those games are flawless. Why haven't they made another one? I need another one. It's not fair that we get one per generation. This is bullshit. Give me more Yoshi Crafted something. But yeah, that's my top 5.
I struck out. See,
okay, go
ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm sure I got none of yours correct.
When I was trying to figure out, I brought up a Reddit post of all Nintendo first party, and I was trying to think outside the box, but I think that this list constrained me in a way that I shouldn't have. Well, not Nintendo first party. I should say Nintendo published, but dang it.
So, it's hard because there's a lot to consider, Pikmin 3, I feel like Octopath Traveler, I didn't think of it either. That would have been a gimme from Micah. And Yoshi's Crafted World, you have mentioned that game a lot. Mm-hmm. Pikmin, I might have said Pikmin 4, but the Pikmin would certainly be in there. But otherwise, I would have struck out as well. It's hard because there's a lot to consider.
Yeah,
that's the thing. We're talking about years and years of games. When I think of Shining Resonance Refrain, I think I was playing that in 2019. This has been years we've been playing. The catalog is huge. Trying to narrow it down to the top 5 in the first place was difficult, just for my own personal top 5. Thinking of what my friends may have chosen, it's like, oh man, there are so many games, and also digital exclusives that I might not be thinking of, because I went through my physical stack of games last night to pick all these out, and not even considering almost like, oh, well, wait a minute, there are games I don't actually own physical copies of that maybe I would have put on the list, but I was very one-track minded about going through the stack of games here.
I like that strategy of the stack of games. I know you could. This game, it's been so many years, been the better part of a decade. You could have just boiled this down to 1 year. It might still be tough. 2019 or 2020 or whatever. All right, Dust, I'm ready for your 5. We'll compare notes to Micah's guesses. I got them right here. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, here we go. I wrote some extras because I was debating, but Here are my 5. Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. Mm-hmm. Fire Emblem 3 Houses.
Oh man,
that's the one. That's the man.
I almost said it too.
Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Really?
Yeah. Because
I picture it as such a Holly game. I didn't realize that you were also so into it.
Dude, during COVID, that was during the era. It was great. I was making decent money and doing less work, way less work than I am now for Last Stand. I was editing 3 shows a week. So I played Persona 5 Royal, and Animal Crossing for 3 months straight during the pandemic. It was awesome. But with that, I can understand why you would think that, because once I was done with it, I was done. I never needed to go back. But I think about how much I enjoyed it during that time when we were at home and locked in. So, but yeah, Animal Crossing New Horizons. After that, whichever I put Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom, but whichever one you said, they're so close. They almost feel like one game in my mind, just an evolved experience. But
yeah, I get that.
So I wrote, maybe that's a little bit of a cheat, but whatever.
Okay, Micah guessed Tears, so
we'll go with Tears. Honestly, okay. Tears is the better game, so it's worth defaulting to that one overall. Then, last but not least, probably, I don't know if this is my favorite game on Switch or just the best, most fun experience. Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey.
Micah did guess that.
I love that game. It's I don't even know if it's the best Mario game, but something about that hits so right. Such a special game because I saw it at the first time I went to E3, so I think I have a bias towards it for that. Just because it's a very important game when I was still trying to break into the industry and stuff, and I just love that game. So, Micah, you got a few there though.
Yeah, Micah. Well, Micah got what you helped her with the one, but Micah only needed a point to win. Right?
Exactly.
She got two. Tears and Breath was kind of a gift, but she definitely nailed Odyssey. Yeah, you're making me think about Odyssey. I may have to go back to that game and give it another shake. Like, give it a kind of fair assessment from, 1,000 miles up. It's been a long time. I think I was too hard on that game. I don't know what I was expecting with that game, but yeah. But well done, you guys. It's hard to, this is a little getting to know you thing. It's a lot to consider. We've been doing the show for... Gosh, it's been almost a year, right? It'll be a year when did we start? In March or April?
I want to say March sounds right.
I think. But going on a year is a lot to think about. Could have really cheated to go back and listen to episodes, but that would have taken literally hours.
Yeah.
What everybody was gushing about during any particular week. But well done. And again, we're going to do this again. It's going to be a little bit of a twist when Gene's here, and I'll pit myself against Gene to see how well me and that dude know each other.
Nice.
Maybe next week. Who knows? The next show, I should say.
Heck yeah, let's do it, guys. We got basically one, and it's not even a half question. There's just a question that came in I had to answer personally, since I know you guys haven't played this, but one question really to end us out. But the bonus question first. Logan Price says, "What's up, Punching Up crew? My 12-year-old stepdaughter wants to play Danganronpa collection. Would it make me a bad bonus dad?" Oh, because stepdaughter. I was like, what's bonus doing in here? A bad bonus dad if I bought it for her. My quick take on this is that she's 12, she's almost 13. There's not any kind of there's gratuitous violence in Danganronpa, but I'm guessing she's seen this stuff before. And this is just, I think it's great. I think it's great for kids to get into the murder fantasy. So absolutely, I would let my 12-year-old stepdaughter play Danganronpa. I'd let a 10-year-old play Danganronpa personally. Yeah. I don't think there's any, it's so fictitious. It's so, fantasy based, but highly recommend it. Always got to shout out Danganronpa. But the real final question comes from Jeff Benson. Says, "Hey, Brick Fisters, it seems to me that the Steam Deck and other handheld PCs are crossing the line from being niche products to being much more broadly adopted. I quickly moved from my Switch to my Steam Deck for nearly 100% of my indie and handheld gaming other than Nintendo first party. How much do you think that this will affect Nintendo's plans and forecasts for Super Nintendo Switch or Switch 2? Do they care about losing some market share from third-party indies and other smaller games to the handheld PC market? Or are they content to be seen as mostly a Nintendo first-party device?" So yeah, Steam Deck, now that it's here, and I have one of the OLED ones I mentioned earlier, but this is something I've thought about, in that this screen not only is it OLED, and I know there's the Switch OLED, but it's 90 hertz. So those indie games will be even more smooth on the Steam Deck. It has cross save with my PC. So a lot of those indie games, I think I'm moving over to Steam Deck. But is this something do you think Nintendo is concerned about? Micah, what do you think about the deck nipping at some of that Switch market share?
I think they probably are very aware of what they might be losing here as the Steam Deck, for example, becomes more popular, because it is. At first, it seemed like just this is something that only the hardcore audience is going to really be interested in. And then it's like, well, no, this is a device that isn't super complicated to use. It's not as intimidating as it seems. You will have more people saying, yeah, that's a great way to play games. Nintendo, though, in my opinion, is always adding more value to their console through the first party options. And especially with Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion pass, adding all those, GBA games and everything. It's just, I see them already, I feel, adding more value to their console, focusing on their own brand. Maybe they are aware that the nindies, as it were, they might lose some of the people who would play, Sea of Stars on Switch. Maybe they'll play it somewhere else instead. But there is always going to be people like me who will try and play just as much as possible on Switch to get the value for their money out of it, as if I haven't, gotten enough value out of the Switch by now. But also just people who really like that form factor already. Being someone who has, small hands, for example, the Switch is not too heavy. It's not a giant console that I'm holding. Like, it's just right for me is the type of thing. But I do think Nintendo is already diversifying their options as they keep expanding what's available with Nintendo Switch Online in terms of those, packaged in games, and really focusing on, this will be the easiest place to play Golden Sun, things like that. I think they're already making moves as they realize they might be losing some of the handheld market.
Dagan, I don't know what your thoughts about Steam Deck. I don't know if you've seen one of these. They are becoming more popular, but I would still say they are very niche in that they're not available for people to go and buy at Target or Walmart or whatever. You got to buy it from Valve. And so I don't know. Do you think Nintendo's looking at it with curious eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued with the Steam Deck, I have to say personally. And I think for Nintendo, though, I think it's the same old thing, the same old philosophy that they have to be buoyed to. It's that life stop and starts with first party and first party quality, and that's where the players are going to be coming from. Even if you're debating about getting the next Nintendo console, a lot, not even most people, but a lot of people are going to want it because they're going to want to play the next big Mario game, right? So they're always going to have an audience through first party. Vis-a-vis, people are going to have the console to play the first party Nintendo games. So as long as they have that, when it comes to choice, Nintendo is just going to have to settle for a percentage of market share for all the other stuff. But through first party and through needing to have a Nintendo console to play Nintendo games, they're always going to have a piece of the pie, I think, just because people are going to have it anyway, that type of thing. And also, I don't know, there's something also that I'm rooting for the next Nintendo console for them not to dwell on the gimmick and maybe sort of sew up things by having games with external gimmicks that, and I think about Mario Kart Live Home Circuit a lot. People forgot about that, but that was a thing that was an external gimmick. It was expensive. It was hard to get, artificial scarcity, the whole 9 yards. But if Nintendo does more of that with the console, I think that keeps it in the running for younger kids against Steam Deck too, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? That type of thing where it's not a built-in gimmick. It's something that they're developing, or maybe they'll even get into second and third party developers where, they'll attract the younger audience. So in other words, they'll always have a market share for the other stuff, but it's all got to come out of that continual production of making sure their first party games are great and continue to be sought after.
Yeah, I think, first party is a huge aspect that even if you have a player who's primarily on Steam Deck, they're going to go over to Nintendo. Maybe they'll emulate it on their Steam Deck, which might work for now with the current Switch in some cases, but Not for the new Switch. So at least not for a while. So, and I think the other thing too is just ease of use. I mean, the Steam Deck is easy to use, but there is still that factor of you got to look, is the game verified on Steam Deck? Does it work? Which in most cases is yes. And for big games, yes, it not almost always, but usually it's fine. But Nintendo still has that plug and play. You buy a game from the store, it's most likely going to work unless it's Pokemon. Then maybe you're going to have some problems. But either way, it will still be fine. You know, that Nintendo seal of quality that they've had for so many years now is still going to be a factor for families. And so, yeah, I think Steam Deck could eat into it some, but I don't think in terms of the mega success we've seen from Nintendo we talked about earlier, I don't probably think they're too concerned. So yeah, but that's it for Punching Up this week. A nice meaty episode. Probably even without Gene, we have no problem delivering without Gene. Not that we don't like having Gene here, of course, but
we love Gene.
This has been a fun episode, guys. Thanks so much for being here, for hanging out. Let's say goodbye. Micah, goodbye to you. Hope you have a great day.
Well, thank you. Same to you as well, Dustin. I got to give a shout out too that the bottle of water I've been drinking during this episode is actually tap water from yesterday that I put in this bottle, sat in my office overnight. I'm going to give the big shout out again. Overnight water. You got to try it out, people. Pour yourself a glass of water, leave it out overnight. Next morning, to have that with your breakfast, take your medications, what have you. It's the best way to start your day.
Fair enough. I've accidentally drank water from like a cup that's been on my desk for a few days. That's a mistake.
Oh, that's too much.
Dusty
water. That's too far.
It's dusty. That's right. I don't think it's... I don't know. Maybe there's some growing it, but it's the dust you can taste after too long. But the 20, the 12 hours. Okay. I don't find that offensive. I find it strange, but not offensive. So, and that's all you can ask for, really. Dig, thanks for hanging out, man.
Oh, it was super fun. It was a pleasure to see you guys. Micah, you remind me of the girl from the movie Signs. Have you ever seen that?
No,
yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
It's she just leaves the glasses of water all over the house, and the whole thing was, it's not fresh. It's not. I'm going to tell you something. My dog wouldn't drink that water. My dog won't drink water unless there's ice in it. My daughter says the dog is bougie, but the dog just grew up with ice water. Like when I fill up her bowl, it's crushed ice, and then I do it middle of the day because she wants it ice cold, and it keeps her out of the toilet, which is great. We don't want to drink it out of the toilet. Yeah. It's a good strategy. Works really, really well, actually. Yeah. So give that a shot. A little pro tip. I mean, my dog she's not a puppy anymore. She's 6, I guess, now. But yeah, that bougie dog only drink ice water. So yeah, that's the exact opposite of Micah.
After this, I'm going and I'm picking up. Micah, we talked about this at some point. I'm getting one of those like slim treadmills.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I got it there's a site where like a company that's local-ish called MacBid, if you're in the Western PA Pittsburgh area, where you can bid on returned items or like Amazon returns that they buy in bulk or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
So I got one for a decent discount. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if I don't think I'm going to podcast and walk on a treadmill. I thought about it.
Amazing.
I was like, might be a good way to get some steps in. So, but anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you to our listeners. We couldn't do without you. Of course, patreon.com/laststandmedia is where we live and breathe. So if you want to help us out there, we appreciate it. And if not, that's okay too. Leave us a like, a subscription, a comment, all that stuff helps us out. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back soon with the full crew. So until next time, goodbye. Punching Up, a Nintendo podcast, is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and produced by me, Dustin Furman. My co-hosts are Gene Park, Dagan Moriarty, and Micah Watson. The show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Punching Up, along with the rest of Last Stand Media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your kind contributions and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.